This is our last Sunday without NFL games. So we are going to be in the lab. We are going to go through and we are going to make sure that we have teams ready. We're going to make some trades. We're going to submit some starting lineups. And yeah, should be a ton of fun. Obviously, all of these have been submitted over there on flockfantasy.com. If you're wondering how so many people have so many free questions, it's most likely because they got the 2025 season pass. If you get the 2025 season pass, you should have free vouchers in your account to ask me start sit questions and the trade questions through the season, as long as you use code FLOCK. It's not too late to get that season pass. You can still set yourself up with all the tools on flockfantasy.com through the entire year. And on top of that, you'll get those free questions to ask me in the live streams that we're going to be doing every single day. It's only $34, not even a subscription, just a one-time payment. But let's go ahead and let's dive into this. For Ashton says, HN, Nico, McConkey, Hurts, Chuba, Sutton, and Ingram. I'm assuming that is our squad here. We are pivoting from Ladd to Brock Bowers. In my opinion, I'd rather have Bowers. Evan Ingram to Matthew Golden. In my opinion, I'd rather have Matthew Golden. So in reality, I think this is going to be easily the Bowers side. I wouldn't be surprised if Bowers outscores Ladd and you get the points at the tougher position. Now, Go Mike Pro coming through. This is Nick Chubb, Jameson Williams versus Aaron Jones, Cooper Kupp. I mean, I think Jameson's pretty easily the best player in this deal. If I'm looking at the rest of the team here, at running back, we have Bijan, Hampton, Chase Brown. Because you don't really need the running back and Aaron Jones would probably be on your bench, I'd rather just take the best player with Jameson Williams. Now, Ember Fox coming through. Here, wide receiver, we need two guys in our starting lineup. I'm not going to play Downs coming off the hamstring injury. I think I'm going to go with Ricky Pearsall and probably a Buka over Travis Hunter week one, just given the fact you have no McMillan and you have no Godwin week one. And then down in the flex, I'm going to go ahead. I will take Trevion Henderson. Dobbins and Henderson are going to be incredibly close. If this really is a 16-team league, this is an incredible roster. Now, Damon coming through. This is Bucky Sutton versus James Conner and A.J. Brown. I personally have Bucky and A.J. Brown ranked back-to-back at 21 and 20. I think it's a personal preference for you. Cortland Sutton versus James Conner. I have Sutton ranked slightly ahead of James Conner. Fact of the matter is, I think that this type of deal, there is no true quote-unquote winner. I think it is just going to be up to you and your own personal preferences. Now, Pac-Man coming through. This is a Dynasty Superflex trade where we're going to be sending Bo Nix and the 2026 first for Kyler Murray, Devon Achane. I think in a Dynasty Superflex league, Bo Nix is the best asset in this deal. Would I rather have the first or Achane? I'd rather have Achane, but honestly, I think the gap between Bo Nix and Kyler Murray is larger than the gap between the first and Achane. I mean, if you were really wanting to go through and commit yourself to a hard contending approach, then obviously the Achane side is going to help you win this season. I just think the Bo Nix side is going to have more long-term value in Dynasty. Now let's move this over real quick so we can make sure we say the names. But LeVar Ball asking to start set. Here we need a flex. Calvin Ridley, brutal matchup week one. Golden rookie. There are a lot of rookies that we would be choosing between. I'm going to go with Trevion Henderson. Again, I think that Ramadre is probably a little annoying with the usage early in the season, but at the end of the day, you are still at least looking at Trevion Henderson as a running back that has absolutely crushed in the preseason, has a great prospect profile, and is a really good matchup against the Raiders week one. Now, Johnny Hoob coming through with our next question. Here we need a wide receiver, tight end, and flex. So wide receiver, we have no Rice. It's really going to be between Igbuka and Matthew Golden. We're going to go Igbuka, even though Golden looks like he could be a viable start early as well with the Jaden Reed injury. I'm going to take Dallas Goedert over Loveland week one, rest of season. Give me Loveland though. And then over there in the flex spots, I think if Devon Achane were to miss, you're going to be playing Ollie Gordon. But if Achane plays, I'm going to go ahead and I will take Matthew Golden. Now, RJ, with our next question. Here we need a running back between Breece, Tracy, Scattaboo, Brian Robinson, Braylon. Pretty easily going to be Breece Hall for me here. I mean, I understand it's a tough matchup and he's a committee, but at least he's the lead back in said committee. Full PPR format, I think we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Jalen Waddle over Tyrone Tracy week one, but I wouldn't fault you if you go with Tracy because it does look like he should be the locked and loaded starter early in the year over Cam Scattaboo with that Scattaboo hamstring. Lotion tried to submit a trade question, but didn't actually put any options. So I'm going to send over a free team voucher or sorry, a free trade voucher for you so you can resubmit this, my friend. But is Sugarman, or iSugarman, is trading McBride for Taylor, lateral move up to you. Cortland Sutton for Mike Evans. Give me Mike Evans relatively easily. Ricky Pearsall versus Evan Ingram. Give me Ricky Pearsall. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Mike Evans side of this, because if I was doing the 2v2 Mike Evans and Evan Ingram versus Cortland Sutton and Ricky Pearsall, given the injuries to the Tampa wide receivers, I'm going to take the Mike Evans side. And I think Jonathan Taylor and Trey McBride are very similar for me. Now, Kobe, we need 2 flex spots for. Ted McMillan looks like a locked and loaded starter week 1 now that Jalen Coker's on the IR and you have Adam Thielen out of town. And then I'd probably go Waddle over Trevion, but it is going to be really close between those 2 players. I don't want to trust Josh Downs week 1 coming off the hamstring. Now, Jagutierrez says, who should we flex, McMillan, Trevion, or Egbuka? I think we're going to go with Ted McMillan out of those options. Again, I'm always a little hesitant to get the rookies in immediately. And I was honestly saying that early in the week with Ted McMillan as well. But the fact of the matter is, now that Carolina has just completely thinned out their wide receiver room with injuries and trades, I think that you just kind of have to go through. I think you just kind of have to take Ted McMillan. Now, Sism's coming in, something like that. Trading Khalil Shakir for Jordan Mason. So this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. So the depth here isn't going to be super, super important when it comes to the wide receiver position. And for that reason, I completely understand if you wanted to go through and if you wanted to take the Khalil Shakir side of things, but I'm sorry, the Jordan Mason side of things, but I think Khalil Shakir is the more exciting player for me. Like, if you have Shakir healthy and Aaron Jones healthy, I'm starting Shakir over Jordan Mason. Maybe if Shakir's like your wide receiver 6, you can make the pivot. Now, Les trading Garrett Wilson for A.J. Brown. This is going to be a redraft team, it looks like. Or it's not linked, so I can't say for sure. If it's redraft, for sure, give me A.J. Brown. If it's Dynasty, it's going to be close, but I'd still probably take A.J. Brown if I was a contender. Hefty Corporation with the trade. This is Kyron, Egbuka, Matthew Golden versus CMC, Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet. Give me CMC over the entire other side. It's a 10-team format, so if we were to look at what's currently available out there on the waiver wire, you have like Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams at quarterback. You have Braylon Allen, Trey Benson at running back. So I just kind of want the best player in the deal, and we can turn the bottom end of our roster for waivers if we need. Now, 116 DJ with the starting lineup question. Xavier Worthy is going to be an auto start for us. So the one thing that I would pivot here is I would bench Travis Hunter in favor of Jameson Williams week 1. Completely fine if you want to make an argument that you'd rather have Travis Hunter rest of season with the upside that he presents. But I'm a lot more confident with the role of Jameson Williams early in the season with how many routes he'll be running. Now, Chisholm's coming through. I guess we're just choosing a starting player between Ollie Gordon and Ted McMillan. If you were to get no Devon Achane, obviously Ollie Gordon would be in play. But right now they're telling us that Achane's going to be playing week 1. And on top of that, if we were to look at this, Ted McMillan is just in a really good spot with them cutting Renfro, trading Thielen, Coker going on the IR. Then they have to backtrack. Then they have to go ahead and pick back up Hunter Renfro. So I think everything's just setting up for Ted McMillan to just see a 25% team target share right out the gate. Good matchup against the Jags. So we're going to go McMillan. Now, Fippy coming through. I'm going to start Dak versus Lawrence. I like the matchup for Lawrence so much more going up against the Carolina Panthers. Let me pull up the implied team totals. The thing is, now you should just see a massive spread on that Eagles-Cowboys game where the Eagles are going to have to throw the ball. I'm sorry, the Cowboys are going to have to throw the ball. So you have an implied team total of 20 points for the Cowboys week 1. The Jags, you have an implied team total much higher than usual, almost 25 points. Pretty high over-under on that Carolina Panthers game. So I think we're going to go with Lawrence, actually. And then down in the flex, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Devonta Smith. Like Rome, we don't need to start him over a player like Smith before we see the breakout. If we see the breakout, then we can pivot over. But with Smith, we've had such a long track record. Now, Coin Man coming through. Here, the best option that we'd have on the bench to put in the flex spot if we wanted to make a change would be Egbuka. And for me, I actually think I would play Igbokwe over either Josh Downs or RJ Harvey week 1, given all the injuries that we have in Tampa. I'm kind of going to be your call, but I think I kind of want to be benching Josh Downs. We want to make sure that we are monitoring what we have with the hamstring reports going into the week. But again, with Downs coming off the hamstring, I'd rather be a little hesitant. Now, Schmunk coming out with our next question. This is Nick Chubb, JCM, Tajee Spears. I'm going to go Nick Chubb week 1. I have both Nick Chubb and JCM on my team in the Flock League. I'm not having to start either guy week 1. I'd be very hesitant to start either player week 1. Just frankly, I have no idea what their respective roles are going to look like. But I would be more confident with Nick Chubb being the starting running back than I would be with JCM. I think more likely than not, they give the veteran the nod with Eckler for week 1 in Washington. Brandon says fair trade, and I'm hesitant for the team. So CeeDee Lamb for Justin Jefferson. This is a dynasty trade. Okay, I was going to say, why the hell does it have Jefferson ranked higher? Actually, looking at the roster, it looks like it's a redraft league. So I'm going to do this as if it's a redraft. Lamb versus Jefferson, tomato. I have Lamb higher in my rankings, but up to you. Kenneth Walker versus Rashee Rice in redraft. Kenneth Walker by far. Drake London versus James Conner in redraft. Drake London by far. Like, I would very easily just take the Kenneth Walker, CeeDee Lamb, Drake London side of this. If it was a dynasty trade, honestly, I'm still going to take the Drake London, CeeDee Lamb, Kenneth Walker side of this. So honestly, it doesn't matter if it's redraft, doesn't matter if it's dynasty. It's CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Kenneth Walker easily. Because for me personally, I view CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson as very comparable players. Now, Tony Miggs, his friend said he's open to trading Walker. Is this an overpay? I'm a Harvey believer, and I trust Nick Chubb. This is not an overpay at all. This is a 10-team league. So you're able to go to the waiver wire in your league here, and you're able to pick up Rachaad White for free. You're able to pick up Darnell Mooney for free. Those players aren't much worse off than Nick Chubb. So, yeah, you go ahead and you just go get Kenneth Walker. Now, Toto coming through here for the flex. We have no Pollard week 1, no Mixon week 1, no Judkins week 1. So it's really Igbokwe and no Addison week 1. So it's Igbokwe or Jalen Waddle. I think you can make an argument that you want Igbokwe here with all the injuries in Tampa. But my default is with the rookies, if they're in a comparable tier with the veteran for the first week of the season, before we actually see the rookie, I'm just going to go with the vet, get the higher floor. Now, Compton says, it's great to be back, just looking for some help. Always appreciate having you, my friend. And here for week 1, I think we're going to take Tyrone Tracy in the flex. I think long-term, the expectation will be, and I'm sorry, there is Pollard week 1. Spears isn't who is playing. I would actually play Pollard over Waddle. Great call. Sorry, I mixed up the names. We're going a little fast here. But Spears isn't playing week 1. You go Tony Pollard over those wide receivers because Spears isn't playing. But here, when we're looking at Tracy versus RJ Harvey, I think RJ Harvey is going to be the running back that you want in the long term. Much better offense, and I think he's probably a better running back as well. But I'd expect Dobbins to be the starter initially, and it's going to take a little bit of time for Harvey to get ramped up. For that reason, I think we should just play Tracy. And yeah, Carlos, sorry if I mixed that up, but we're going to be going with Pollard over Waddle. Now, Scam Ward tried to send in a super message, but didn't attach anything to it. So I'm going to hook you up with a free start sit question, just in case you're trying to ask a start sit. Okay. And let's refresh this. So we're going to get through all the quick questions, the start sit questions, the trade questions, the super messages, and then we'll pivot over and we will get to the team reviews, because I know we have a lot of team reviews to look at. Now, Tommy here with the start sit for week 1. Kenneth Walker is an auto start. Tony Pollard, yes, very interesting with no Spears, but the issue with Pollard week 1 is he's going to have a tough matchup against Denver, so you play Walker. Now, Adon Deck says, should I take this trade? Questions about Pollard in the long term. So I would rather have London here over Ladd. If we're looking at Pollard versus Breece, I'd rather have Breece once Spears gets back. London's the best player in this deal. I'm fine if you wanted to go London and Pollard, but I wouldn't mind at all trying to sell Pollard a couple weeks in before you get Spears added in. Now, T. Dennis says, JMO for Rice. We have Jefferson, Terry, Worthy, Rome, and a two flex league. So if it was a single flex format, I would say, you know what? You don't really need the wide receiver depth here early in the season. So yeah, it makes sense. Just go get the player that has the higher ceiling. Let's just go ahead and let's trade Jameson for Rice. Since it's a double flex league, I think it's going to be up to you, and it's going to be much tougher to get that done. I know obviously week 1 we're in a really good spot, but if you were to see an injury, or if you were to see a just a letdown, like who knows, maybe Rome Odunze is just a straight up bust. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for sure, but it's in the range of outcomes. It is a possibility. So I would rather have JMO over Rice in a 12-team double flex format. Now, Chase coming through with our next question. Here, we are going to be starting Tet over Olave, and we're going to go Worthy as an auto start with no Rice. Ridley, really tough matchup against Denver. I know we weren't as excited about Tet earlier in the week, but again, now you have no Coker in the offense. Now, the good news, gurus. This is Egbuka versus Eckler and Josh Downs. It is a 12-team start 8 format. You go through and you make this trade. You are going to have to drop somebody, though. The drop would be Joshua Palmer. Running back, we have Swift, Pollard, and that's it. So I completely understand what you are trying to do here, where your team actually probably needs another running back. Now, with that being said, do I love this price tag? No. With this price specifically, I would probably try to squeeze a little bit more out of Egbuka. Now, Agug coming through, this says Daniels, Hampton, Trey McBride versus Bo Nix, CMC, and Tyler Warren. So this is going to be an 8-team league. If this is an 8-team format, let's look what's available here on the waiver wire. Rome Odunze, David Montgomery, Chris Olave. Rome's on the waiver wire in your league. The depth doesn't matter. Looking at our team, we don't have the best quarterback tight end room in an 8-team format if we make this deal. But to get McCaffrey in an 8-team league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, you just have to go for it. Like, you don't overly complicate a league like this. You go get the best player that can break fantasy football. That's probably the only thing that matters here. Now, this is going to be a super flex league that we have to submit a starting lineup for. We're effectively just looking at Jerome Ford versus Stephon Diggs week 1. I'm going to go Diggs. Ford has a good matchup, and he's probably starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, and Stephon Diggs coming off a skin fit injury, but full PPR format, and with Cleveland, while we can say that there's a good shot, Jerome Ford's a starting running back. It's not a guarantee. Could end up being Dylan Sampson. Now, Mason 12 coming through here for the flex spot. We are choosing between Tracy, Dobbins, Mims, Matthew Golden, Rome Odunze. Week 1, we're going to go Tracy. I don't know how often we're going to do this, but again, with the Scadaboo hamstring, I think Tracy's going to have a large role to start the year before Scadaboo expands it. Now, OJO with our next question. Here we need a flex. We have no Godwin, no Addison early. Swift would be interesting for me to get in. I'd play Swift over Egbuka week 1. I mean, you pretty much just have the guaranteed 3-down workload there with all the injuries that you have in the Chicago backfield. Junior trading Ladd for Bucky Irving. In a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 10-team league like this, it's going to be Bucky Irving, and it's pretty easy. JP trading Saquon, Ladd McConkey versus Amari Hampton, CeeDee Lamb. Saquon versus Lamb, up to you in this format. Ladd versus Hampton, up to you in this format. I do have Saquon ranked slightly ahead of Lamb. I have Ladd ranked slightly ahead of Hampton. So I probably pick the Saquon and Ladd side, but not far off at all. Now, Usman trading Trey McBride for Breece and Evan Ingram. Looks like this is a shallower starting lineup. I know our running back room is not the best, but value-wise, I definitely want the Trey McBride side of this. Like, I understand trying to trade for a running back, but I think I would go about this by trying to trade a wide receiver instead of Trey McBride. Now, Blurry trading Bijan, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore versus Kyron, Jordan Mason, Ladd McConkey. Yeah, it's going to be Bijan Robinson for me. Bijan's in a completely different tier than any of these players. So even if we're getting like an upgrade from Rice to Ladd, like points per game wise, That's not going to be that far off. The thing is just lads obviously playing more games. And then you're also downgrading from like DJ Moore to Jordan Mason. So really the only thing that you're doing here is like effectively getting 6 more games out of Rashee Rice, but you're also having to downgrade 2 spots. So I'd rather just have Bijan. Now Slim Tim, this is Xavier Worthy, JCM versus JSN and Jake Ferg. I love Xavier Worthy. I have JCM in the Flock League. Really rooting on this. This is a dynasty format. Realistically, we cannot sit here and say that JCM is guaranteed anything from a dynasty perspective. And I do think that JSN is still a tier ahead of Xavier Worthy. So, Dynasty League, I'm going to go ahead. I will take Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he is probably the best play. Now, Somal with the start set. Down in the flex, our best option to get in week 1 would be Tony Pollard. And honestly, I probably start Pollard over Pickens week 1. Pickens, tough matchup going up against the Eagles, whereas Pollard, you have a tough matchup as well against Denver, but with no Tajee Spears, I think you just have that guaranteed 3-down roll. Now, De Niro with the start set. Here for the flex, I know that we've said we want to be a little more hesitant to just go through and jam in the rookies week 1. But there are 3 rookies that I think buck this trend. Previously, there were 2, but with all the injuries that we have in Carolina, we're throwing in Tet. But I think you have Genty, Hampton, Tet that you can start with confidence week 1. Even though we haven't seen them, even though we haven't had the breakout yet. So honestly, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to play Hampton. Now, True Penguin trading Jefferson for Achane and Tet McMillan. I would say in the vast majority of leagues, this is a no-go. You keep the best player, you keep Justin Jefferson. And in the vast majority of leagues, I don't think it's that close either. Now, with this league, it's a 14-teamer. Our running back room is Chase Brown, Javonte Williams, Cam Scatterbo, Quinshon Judkins, JCM. We go through and we look at the waiver wire and the current options on waivers. I guess you actually have some players that aren't that bad. You have Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson. Because you have like Ford and Dylan Sampson, you have some viable running backs that we could go ahead and pick up. I'm probably going to go ahead and I'm probably going to take the Justin Jefferson side of this. But I understand where you're coming from in a 14-team league where we have a pretty bad running back room. Now, Bungie trading Devonta Smith for Isaiah Pacheco and Keon Coleman. It's a 12-team league where we can start up to 4 receivers weekly. We're rostering Bijan, and that's about it. Bijan and a bunch of backup running backs. So while I love Devonta Smith, I understand where you're coming from here, and I think if you really wanted to, yes, we can go ahead and we can make this deal. I think you can get Isaiah Pacheco and Keon Coleman if you want. I don't know if you're winning value there, though. Now, Pepe needs a starting lineup. Barkley, Kenneth Walker, auto starts. Mike Evans, Drake London, T. Higgins in the flex, auto starts as well. And then tight end, we're going to go Evan Ingram over Jonnu. And I probably will rank Mike Evans over T. Higgins week 1. Rest of season, probably Higgins, because eventually you will get Godwin added back in. Now, Jason coming through. This is Trevion and Jerry Jeudy versus Chuba and Igbuka. Trevion versus Chuba, give me Trevion. Jeudy versus Igbuka, give me Igbuka. 8-team league. 8-team league, I just want the player that has the highest ceiling, and I think the player that has the highest ceiling is going to be Trevion Henderson. Now, Alpha coming through. This is Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill. With all the injuries that we've had in Tampa, like Godwin having the second surgery, Jalen McMillan now out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to take Mike Evans. And I'm not that hesitant when doing so either, to be honest. Now, JoJo, here for the flex, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Xavier Worthy. Tony Pollard will be close. You have no Rice, but you also have no Spears. I think you'd be excited about both players. I'm going to go with Worthy, though, because specifically for week 1, you do have that tougher matchup for Tony Pollard going up against the Denver Broncos. Now, no locks here with the start set. I'm going to go Javonte over Braylon Benson, Caleb Johnson. Javonte Williams technically is starting running back, but we don't know what the exact workload's going to be. And at the same time, you're in a pretty uncomfortable spot when it comes to the matchup against the Eagles. And then down in the flex, we for sure play Devonta Smith. We for sure do not want to be looking at any of the wide receivers. I'm sorry, running backs, of course. Now, Danny Boy here, we need a running back between JCM, Caleb, and Bigsby. Super uncomfortable spot. Frankly, I don't know what you should do here. I would love to come out and say like, oh yeah, it's super simple. You just jam in Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He's going to be the starting running back week 1. But the fact of the matter is we simply don't know. I'm not going to fault you if you want to go JCM. I'm not going to fault you if you want to go Caleb Johnson. I think Caleb Johnson's the better running back. I would have him rest of season. I think we're pretty confident Jalen Warren's the starting running back in Pittsburgh, but at the same time, you're pretty confident that JCM's going to be in the better offense. Tank Bigsby could be the starting running back in Jacksonville. He could be the RB3. Like, I have no idea. I do know that we probably want a wide receiver with Matthew Golden in our flex. And then can y'all please let me know in the chat, who would you start between JCM, Caleb Johnson, and Tank Bigsby week 1? Week 1, are you going to go Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Tank Bigsby, or Caleb Johnson? We got Caleb, JCM, Bigsby, Caleb, JCM, Caleb, JCM. Let's go JCM week 1. I really don't know. A rest of season, I would definitely prefer Caleb because, again, I think you do just have a better talent profile. I just don't know what the split's going to be between him and Warren. I think Warren's going to probably be the starter, and the Steelers aren't going to have a good offense. They're not going to score a lot of points against the Jets. Now, Hillberry traded Metcalf for Pollard and Igbuka. I have Metcalf in the Flock League, and I have plenty of running back production, but I would still very easily make this move. Points per game may not be that far off between the two wide receivers. And Pollard just kind of looks like a must-start running back for you early on. So, yeah, we're going to go with the Pollard and Igbuka side. Okay, and let's refresh this, see if we have any more of the quick-hitting questions before we get to the team reviews. Okay, Wicked Dependency. Here at wide receiver, Jameson Williams going to be the easy play. Maybe you could convince me to go Ricky Pearsall if you had no Jawan Jennings. And we're going to go Tony Pollard in the flex spot as well with no Spears. Now, 44 MSU. Here at receiver, I think we need to go ahead and we need to take Marv. While Tet McMillan's a lot more exciting with the Coker injury, I still don't know if you could play him. And then in the flex, we're going to play Tet McMillan anyway. And I think at this point, I may be comfortable playing Tet McMillan over DJ Moore week 1. Like, the Bears don't project to score a ton of points week 1. And that over-under for the Jags-Panthers game is surprisingly high. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll play Tet. Now, Sammy with the trade. This is Xavier Worthy, Mike Evans versus Josh Jacobs. So since it's an 8-team league, do I take the best player here? Great question, because if this was a 12-team format, I'd say, you know what? Mike Evans probably has a high enough ceiling. Xavier Worthy's probably in a crush with no Worthy. I would be very hesitant to make this move. But 8-team league, I think I'm with you. I think you just make any 2-for-1 deal you can to get the best player in the deal. So we go ahead and look at the waiver wire. Josh Downs is on the waiver wire. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's on the waiver wire. You have a very simple pickup that you're able to make. So let's just go get Josh Jacobs. And then let me pull up some of the teams. And obviously, we'll keep answering all the questions through this live stream. Here's my goal for this stream. hold me to it. We'll see if any of y'all are sick enough to stay with me through the entire stream today. But my goal for this live stream is I am going to try to stream for 5 hours. I'm going to try to get through as many teams as I possibly can. That way, I am not drowning through the week. So, if any of y'all are going to be bored all day at work and want to hang out with me and want to remind me, my goal is 5 hours. And Dylan says we hit 100 likes. Let me confirm this real quick. If we did, one, if you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on this live stream. And two, if we did hit 100 likes, drop your flockfantasy.com name in the chat. And we'll go ahead and we will get y'all set up with some free vouchers for the stream. But yeah, it looks like we had 100 likes. I just pulled it up on my phone and dropped a like myself. So drop your flockfantasy.com username in the chat. And we'll give away some free vouchers. Okay, so just pulled up my users page on the site, and I can only find you on my users page if you use code FLOCK on the site. But let's got Retreeper. Definitely have not given you anything before. But let me go ahead, send over some free start, sit, and trade vouchers. And they are in your account now, my friends. So you should be able to send over some free questions in the stream. And now let's dive into these teams. The first one that we are going to be looking at here will be from Joe Papa. Team name is Give Me My Rice. We are second in the league analyzer. This is a 10-team, 1-quarterback, start 8 format. Looking at our roster currently, we are in a pretty comfortable position. 10-team league, options on the waiver wire, they're not going to be that bad. If we go ahead and we look at what we have, running back wise, it's very bare. Wide receiver, we have Bateman and Leggett. Tight end, we have Kincaid, who's a pretty interesting pickup. Now, at quarterback, we have the elite QB, and apparently it's Rat Reaper. I'm sorry, I can't read. I have no idea what Rat Reaper means. But anyway, we have an elite quarterback and an elite tight end, so we are in a very comfortable position where you only have to roster one. We don't need to worry about going through and picking up Dalton Kincaid off waivers, even if he technically would be the best available player. So we can just load up on as many running backs and as many wide receivers as we possibly can get on the bench. Now, going over and looking at what we have at running back, we are currently sitting with Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Austin Eckler, Ramondre Stevenson, and Rachaad White. So looking at this, we have 2 locked and loaded running back ones, and we have quality depth with Montgomery and Eckler as guys that we could play if we needed to. And then obviously Montgomery gives you the elite handcuff appeal if anything were to occur to Gibbs. And then Ramondre and Rachaad White both give you handcuff appeals as well. So I really like what we have at the running back room. Wide receiver, we have London, Rice, Olave, Addison, Godwin, Juwan Jennings, Shakir. I love this wide receiver room in a vacuum. I think you have a ton of value. You can see that with the league analyzer where we're currently the second team in this league. But there is an issue with this team. We are going to have no Godwin. We're going to have no Rice. We're going to have no Addison, potentially no Juwan Jennings to start the year. So if we look at this, you are in a position that you are going to be struggling to fill out your starting lineup. Week 1, we have Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor at running back. We have London, Olave at wide receiver, which is already not great in a 10-team league. And then our 2 flex spots, we're starting David Montgomery and Austin Eckler. So for me, while I may like your wide receivers in a vacuum, I think for you to have so many of these receivers that are going to give you production in the second half of the season and nothing in the first half, you simply just have to make some pivots over to guys that maybe don't have as high of a ceiling, but are at least going to give you startable weeks early on. Like, is there a world in which we can just go through and sell Rashee Rice and pivot over to Devonta Smith, pivot over to Cortland Sutton, pivot over to DJ Moore, pivot over to Jameson Williams, pivot over to DK Metcalf? Obviously, if we could, we would love to pivot over and get Xavier Worthy. That one's probably going to be much, much easier said than done. But I think that's the move that you need to make, whether you're selling Rice for one of those wide receiver swaps 1-for-1, whether you're selling Addison for one of those wide receiver swaps 1-for-1, or whether you're selling Godwin. Should be very simple for you to find the range of guys that we're going to be looking at. You can just use the expert average ranks on the site. But I just don't know if you can get away with having all three of these players on your roster early in the season when it's going to be a start 8 format rather than a start 7 league. But overall, I like the team. I hope I was able to help you out. Now, Salt coming through with our next question says, hey, Mason, just want to say I appreciate you for the fantasy content and tools on the site. Appreciate you, my friend. Hope that those tools are really useful for you. Wanted to get your thoughts on the team and who you think my starters should be week 1 in this league with my dad and his friends from work. Big pot for first place and want to do my due diligence. Well, I'll already say that you're crushing your league mates. Like, looking at the league analyzer here, we are the number 1 team by a decent little margin. We are 2nd at tight end, 3rd at running back, 4th at receiver, and 10th at quarterback. This is a 12-team start 8 league. Quarterback, I would say that Drake May is probably worth rostering for you. Like QB1, Caleb Williams. Obviously, Caleb has a lot of upside, not going to deny that. But it's not like Caleb's in the tier of guys that we're starting no matter what. So if you could pick up Drake May and then play the matchups, I think that would be ideal. Especially knowing that you are kind of limited with the other options that we have on the waiver wire here, where after May, it'd be like Michael Penix, Tua, Cam Ward, Bryce Young, which in my opinion, that is a pretty clear teardrop. So I wouldn't have to want to go through and look at one of those QBs. So I would pick up Drake May. The difficult thing with this is the options that you have on the bottom end of your bench are very compelling. Like, I don't really want to sell Keon. I don't really want to drop Keon Coleman. I don't want to drop Shakir. I don't want to drop Tank Bigsby. So I think you have to get a little bit unique with this, where your players at the bottom of your roster are too good to drop. I mean, you're able to get too strong of values in your league. And while we don't want to drop them, we know nobody's going to trade for them. It's not going to be possible for you to package together Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir and go get a wide receiver that you're really excited about. But what you potentially could do, and you could potentially get away with, is maybe going ahead and doing a trade where we involve one of the better receivers to open up a roster spot. So if you could, instead of trading like Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman, if we wanted to open a roster spot to pick up that quarterback for free, I think you should go over to the running back position and do what we can to potentially try to sell like RJ Harvey and DJ Moore and get the best running back possible. Because we look at this, while you can start 4 wide receivers in your league weekly, realistically, we have A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Ricky Pearsall, and then we have Olave, Shakir, Keon Coleman on our bench. So we have 3 quality bench options. So if we could sell DJ Moore and RJ Harvey, go get the best running back possible. Ricky Pearsall and RJ Harvey, Terry McLaurin and RJ Harvey, Chris Olave and RJ Harvey. Just one of those wide receivers with Harvey to go get a running back upgrade. And then you move up the other wide receivers on your depth chart. We have a better running back too. We can pick up Drake May off the waiver wire. We have the extra spot to play the matchups between him and Caleb. That's the main thing that I would look to do. Overall, it's a very strong team. Like, we can just see that with the league analyzer right out the gate. And then other waiver wire moves that we want to make, none really stand out just because, again, your bench is extremely strong with your team, right? So, I mean, I don't necessarily think that you are incentivized to go out there and drop anybody. And that's why I kind of need to get a little more creative with how we open that roster spot. But I really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And good luck in the league, but honestly, I don't know how much luck you actually need. I think you're in a good spot. Now, our next team's going to be Gilbits, but I'm going to double check real quick to make sure that we have stream mode on the site. If y'all don't know how this works, if y'all ever send in a question on flockfantasy.com, the second that I answer it in the live stream, the question that you asked automatically gets marked as complete. and you get sent a message on flockfantasy.com, and you'll receive an email as well. And in that message, it will have a custom link that when you click that custom link, it will take you to the exact time in the live stream where I answered your question. So you can ask a question on the live stream, whether you are in it, whether you are out of it, whether you're going to watch it live, whether you're going to watch it later. Frankly, it just doesn't matter, but I need to make sure that we have it set up correctly, and we do. So Gilbit's here, should see his answer. But let me go through and set you up with some free questions here, my friend. It says, the legend Mason Dodd, love watching the growth of the community. Weak on running backs, have some wide receivers to trade. What are we doing? It is a double flex, 0 tight end league. Well, what we are doing in that case is we are boat racing your league mates when it comes to our roster. Like, what the hell is your league mate doing here rostering Bowers, Kittle, Laporta, and Kraft? Like, the fact that the league analyzer doesn't even identify that tight ends aren't that valuable in your league and you are still number one without just getting any, like, some cheeky tight end, quote unquote, value that would matter in another league and not yours is incredible. Now, looking at what we have with the ability to start 2 flexes, wide receiver depth is going to be more important. So for us to be the number 1 team in the league analyzer at wide receiver, you'll love to see it. We have Chase, Ladd, Wilson, Terry, all of whom we can get into the lineup every week. And we have Diggs and Jaden Higgins down on the bench. Then going over to running back, we have Kyron, Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, Quinshon Judkins, Brian Robinson. So running back is okay. I think that this kind of goes without being said, and I'm sure you already know, and I'm sure that if you could, you would. But if you had an IR slot, obviously we want to be going through and we want to be picking up Joe Mixon, throwing him on the IR, and then managing just to open up a roster spot kind of in a free way there. When we're looking at what we have at quarterback, we are currently sitting with Bo Nix. The options on the waiver wire aren't too compelling, where I don't know if any of these quarterbacks you would ever play over Bo, even if you had a strong matchup. And at the same time, if Bo Nix were to get injured, you have a couple different quarterbacks we can choose from between Love, Herbert, Michael Penix, Tua, Cam Ward, and Bryce Young. So I don't think you're a team that needs to be rostering 2 quarterbacks here. Going over and looking at what we have with our running back room, like while we have the locked in our RB1, RB2 is definitely shaky, but while I can't tell you for sure, oh yeah, we know that Aaron Jones is going to be solid, or oh yeah, we know that Travis Etienne is going to be solid, or oh yeah, we know that Quinshon Judkins is going to be solid. Fact of the matter is probably one of these running backs ends up working out. Now, could I tell you which one? Probably not. But I think you're probably going to be able to figure out once we get to weeks 3 or 4 of what running back you're going to be starting here weekly. And then when we go over and when we look at the wide receiver position, because it's a league where you have multiple flex spots and we can start 4 wide receivers weekly, like, do we really need to be selling Stephon Diggs? Do we really need to be selling Jaden Higgins? Probably not. Like, maybe if you ended up getting a really big Jaden Higgins breakout, then at that point, if Stephon Diggs becomes a little bit less important to our roster, then we could try to sell Stephon Diggs in a 2-for-1 deal with the running back like Aaron Jones to get an upgrade there at RB2, or we can try to sell like Terry McLaurin and Bo Nix to go get to an elite level quarterback. But the fact of the matter is, it's not like you have a guarantee that Jaden Higgins is going to be relevant. So if we were to go through and do that by selling Diggs, you'd be in a position that really does compromise you. So if I was going to try to do something with this team, I think you sit on your hands, to be honest. I think you absolutely constructed the perfect team for your league setting specifically. We hammered in wide receiver when wide receiver is what matters here. Love that we're not rostering a tight end. I think if Jaden Higgins breaks out and Stephon Diggs looks viable, then at that point we could potentially explore the possibility of trading to get a better RB2. But we just don't know if we have that luxury yet. And then when it comes to potential waiver wire moves, the only thing that you would do is you would add Joe Mixon if you had an IR slot to throw him on. And if you don't, then you're probably not going to make that move. And I'm sure you would have already made it if you did. But I will probably say, like, once you get to weeks 2 or 3, then probably just drop Brian Robinson for Joe Mixon. Anyway, as Mixon probably will be just closer to getting back. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you. I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. And overall, you just have a great roster for your format. Now, Jack M. Barak is a longtime member of the flock. Excited to check out your squad, my guy. This is a 12-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So the wide receiver position is not going to matter nearly as much when it comes to the depth. Obviously, we still want the top-end players, but I don't want to be rostering as many wide receivers. And if we have a bunch of wide receiver 2s, we need to be selling them in a league like this. So quarterback, we are currently sitting with Baker Mayfield and CJ Stroud. Looking at these 2 options, I would say you're probably starting Baker most weeks, but based off the quarterbacks that are sitting there on the waiver wire with Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, like, I agree. I think that we need to be rostering 2 quarterbacks because everybody else in our league is. And if Baker were to regress, then you really don't have an option that you could potentially pivot to off waivers. So let's for sure roster 2 quarterbacks. I think we leave that as is. Going over and looking at what we have at running back. Kyron's a fine RB1. Pollard's a fine RB2. Caleb Johnson, upside RB3. Charbonnet, Braylon Allen. Running backs that realistically, if you were desperate, you could play them, but they're pretty much just premium handcuff backs. So I really like how we've constructed the running back room. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, London, Devonta Smith. So we have 2 elite receivers. We have a great play for the flex. And then we have Josh Downs, Deebo Samuel for the wide receiver depth pieces. And then we have Tyler Warren at tight end. Because this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, the only thing I think you could potentially say here is if there was a path for us to guarantee ourselves elite tight end production, let's go for it. Or elite quarterback production, let's go for it. All of these deals I'm about to suggest are probably going to get rejected. But you're overall sitting with a well-balanced roster where you don't necessarily have any needs and you're in the position of strength. So if you were to make a trade today, I think you would have to clearly be winning the deal. So again, I think the majority of these trades would get rejected. Looking at the waiver wire options, there's nobody here for you to pick up. But I would offer Devonta Smith and Tyler Warren for George Kittle. I'd offer Devonta Smith and Tyler Warren for Trey McBride. I would offer Devonta Smith and Tyler Warren for Brock Bowers. Realistically, the only one that could possibly get accepted out of that list would be the Kittle one, and it probably doesn't. I would also offer Devonta Smith and Baker Mayfield for Lamar. You're going to get rejected. I'd offer Devonta Smith and Baker for Allen. We're going to get rejected. I would offer Devonta Smith and Baker for Jalen Hurts. Probably going to get rejected. And I'd offer Devonta Smith and Baker Mayfield for Jaden Daniels. Probably get rejected as well. But I would send those 7 offers out. If anybody bites, cool. They're probably not going to. You're probably rolling into the season with this as is. But ultimately, I think that you are in a really comfortable position. And you definitely set up the roster correctly, considering the league settings and the fact that your league mates kind of went ham rostering those second quarterbacks. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. And again, thank you for sticking with me for so long, my guy. I know that you've been a member of the flock forever. Now, let's move this over to our next team. That's going to be from Graham Redden. Appreciate you, my friend. 12-team league. I'm trying to trade Judy for another running back or Judy and Cook for an RB1. So let's go ahead and let's pull this up. And first thing is, let me make sure I can hook you up with some free questions just in case you have any follow-ups with what we see here. But I will say right out the gate that here, this is a 2 wide receiver single flex format. So the fact of the matter is, while I agree a wide receiver like Jerry Jeudy in this league is not going to be the most impactful piece for us because wide receiver depth is going to be very easy to come by. At the same time with that, I mean, I don't see anybody trading for Jerry Jeudy. Like, typically my go-to when we're looking at a roster like this, where I can see we are incredibly strong. We have Jaden Daniels as the elite quarterback. We go over and I guess you don't have to start. No, Tucker Kraft as our tight end. Going down to the bench, we're not rostering another tight end. We're not rostering another QB. I think if Tucker Kraft's your tight end, I'm not going to fault you for picking up a second, but it is up to you. Now, looking at what we have at running back, we have Jacobs and James Cook. If James Cook was my RB1, I'd be stressing. James Cook as an RB2 is very strong. Josh Jacobs is very strong as an RB1. I think you're in a very comfortable position here. Going over and looking at what we have with our bench options, we have Tank Bigsby, and that is it. So the issue with your team is it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league where we built our team around Jamar Chase. And with Jamar Chase, obviously we get a lot of flexibility here. But we have Chase, Sutton, Travis Hunter, George Pickens, Jaden Reed, Jaden Higgins, and Jerry Jeudy. So let's just count this out. We're rostering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers when our wide receiver 1 is Chase, and we can only play 3 of these guys at the very most. And we go over to running back. We have Jacobs, James Cook, Bigsby, Sharps. So we're rostering 4 running backs in comparison to 7 wide receivers when our wide receivers are also stronger at the top, and we can only start 3 of either position. So I would agree what we need to be doing is we need to be trading wide receiver production for running back production. Now, the thing that we got to figure out is how do we do that? And maybe the first thought is let me try to sell Jerry Jeudy and let me try to go out there and get an upgrade to a running back that way. But the reality of the situation is, at least in my experience, is in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, your demand for Jerry Jeudy in your league is going to be incredibly low. Like us going through and us looking at other wide receivers, I think you can actually get some offers for. Like George Pickens is getting steamed up right now, of course. A lot of people are super excited about George Pickens. We go, you're not going to be able to sell Jaden Reed for anything. I don't think you want to sell Travis Hunter in a league like this. Cortland Sutton as well. Realistically, what's the difference in points per game between Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton this year? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be massive. But I think you're going to have a lot more success if you were to try to sell Cortland Sutton and James Cook for a running back. So what I would probably do is I would probably go through, offer Sutton and Cook, and see if we can get to tier up at running back. Is there any way we can get to, we already have Jacobs. Is there any way we can get to Taylor, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving? Probably not, but I'm going to send the offers Achane if the Achane injury is scaring that owner. If all of those get rejected, I think you can have the backup plan to try to pivot over to like Amari and Hampton, where if you wanted to try to sell like Jerry Jeudy and James Cook to get to Amari and Hampton, that could also be an interesting move, but obviously that's just a significantly less appealing running back upgrade in comparison if you could get to like the Bucky Irving, Chase Brown range of guys. So my main play is let's give them a little bit of a better receiver so we can get a little bit of a better running back. Then at that point, yeah, we're actually probably using the score of Jerry Jeudy ourselves or Travis Hunter or Jaden Reed or any of the wide receivers that we have. We have a ton of them. We'll open up an additional roster spot on our team. And then at that point, we can go to the waiver wire and pick up another running back. Because again, my issue is we can't be rostering 7 receivers here if it's a 2 wide receiver single flex. And we have Jamar Chase at the top. We got to find a way to get rid of some of these receivers for running back production. I think you're more likely to be able to sell Sutton and then rely on the other depth pieces yourself. But appreciate you and hope I was able to help you out. And I hooked you up with some of those free questions if you had any follow-ups with us. Well, let me move this over to fair deals. And real quick, we are about to hit 200 likes on the stream. So if you haven't already, go down there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We are going to be live streaming, answering fantasy football questions every single day until Christmas. And once we hit 200 likes, we're going to be giving away some flockfantasy.com free question vouchers. Now, Fair Deal says, unsure about my running back room, looking to make a play for McCaffrey. What are your thoughts? Well, first thing is, let me make sure that we send you over some free questions. Second thing is, looking at the team, we are currently second in the league analyzer. We are first at wide receiver. We are 9th at running back, 7th at tight end, and 12th at quarterback. And this team is a very similar issue, in my opinion, to what the previous team we just looked at has. And that is, this is a start 2 wide receiver single flex league. So, okay, we're going to pencil in Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, and Ted McMillan as almost starters every single week, regardless of matchup. So what the hell are we doing with Stephon Diggs, Jerry Jeudy, Jawan Jennings, Rashad Bateman, and Wan'Dale Robinson on our bench? What is the upside for you to potentially get Wan'Dale Robinson in your starting lineup? It will never happen. Never. So here's what I'm doing right out the gate. Day one. That's going to improve our running back room while not really negatively impact us at wide receiver. I think you'll still be the number 1 team in the league analyzer at wide receiver, but you'll bump up higher than 9th at running back. Drop Rashad Bateman, drop Wan'Dale Robinson. They don't have the ceiling. They don't have the path to ever hit your starting lineup. I don't think they have the ceiling or the path for you to ever be able to trade them for a significant amount either. And let's go pick up some running backs that we believe are talented. And if their situations were to change, then at that point, they could be viable plays. So if we're looking at what that means at running back, like you could get Quinshon Judkins and Baishal Tutin off the waiver wire for free. So I would go ahead. I would drop Bateman. I would drop Wan'Dale. I'd pick up Judkins. I'd pick up Tutin. I think that's going to bump us up the running back rankings with the league analyzer immediately. And then once you make that move, it's like, okay, well, quarterback, we have Bo Nix. If we're looking at waiver wire options there, like you have Lawrence, Michael Penix, and that's it. It looks like pretty much everybody's rostering 2 QBs in your league. So if you wanted to also roster Trevor Lawrence, I wouldn't fault you for it, but I think that we don't necessarily need to, right? You're probably going to be starting Bo Nix every week over Lawrence regardless. Running back, we'll have like Hampton, Alvin Kamara, Brees as 3 running backs that we're probably starting every single week, right? We don't have that much to stress about here. And then when we look at the additional depth pieces that we have with Judkins and Baishal Tutin at that point, we do have a considerable amount of upside that could hit our lineup later in the year. So I don't necessarily think that running back's going to be a problem. Wide receiver, we're auto-locking St. Brown, Drake London, Ted McMillan in our lineup. We have Diggs, Jeudy, and Jawan Jennings down on the bench. So I don't necessarily think that we need to do anything early on in the season when it comes to trades. However, if we were to get, say, Ted McMillan, Stephon Diggs, and then one of Jerry Jeudy or Jawan Jennings becoming viable, then at that point, if you have 5 viable wide receivers that we know we can rely upon, it probably would suit you to go through and try to sell one of the receivers for an elite onesie here in a 2 wide receiver 1 flex, where we would sell London and Bo Nix to go get, actually, I don't even know if we'd sell London for the elite quarterback. Maybe we would sell Ted McMillan and Bo Nix and try to go out there and get the elite QB, a top 4 option. Maybe we try to sell London and Loveland for Brock Bowers, depending on how the season's going. But we're not going to try to make a trade like that right now. I think, honestly, that would put you in a little bit of a compromising position. I think the only thing that you need to do right this second is you need to be dropping Wan'Dale, dropping Rashad Bateman, picking up Judkins, picking up Baishal Tutin, and I think that will naturally help your team out. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way here. And it looks like we hit 200 likes on the stream. So please go down to the chat real quick, everyone, and drop your flockfantasy.com username. And we'll pick one of y'all to get a couple free vouchers to send in questions. Now let's move this over to our next question. It's going to come out from Weston Johnson. It says, love the YouTube videos and stream. Really appreciate you, my guy. Going to be super excited to check this squad out. First, we do have to do this little giveaway, though. Let me find a name in the YouTube chat to send over some free vouchers for. We got Kelsey Lover. Okay, Kelsey Lover just found you on the site and just sent you over some free vouchers, my friend. So you should be able to get some questions in whenever you want. Okay. But anyway, this is Alpha Aura. We are the number one team in the league analyzer. We start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex here. So 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Again, very similar to what we looked at with the previous teams. Wide receiver depth's not going to matter that much. We're going to jam in Ladd, Mike Evans every single week. We'll probably have Garrett Wilson down there in the flex. And then Addison, Higgins, Leggett, Marvin Mims are all just bench pieces for us. So looking at this team, we got Bijan round 1, Bowers round 2, Ladd round 3, Mike Evans round 4, Garrett Wilson round 5. Incredible draft. No idea how the hell you did this. Like, this looks like it's a keeper league where you got to keep Brock Bowers for literally nothing. But looking at what we have with quarterbacks, we have Bo Nix. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to cut Marvin Mims and pick up Trevor Lawrence and roster 2 quarterbacks just to see if you do get the second year slump for Bo Nix, or if you get a pretty big breakout for Lawrence if Travis Hunter absolutely smashes and Travis Hunter turns out to be like a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham Jr. level player. Of course, it's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, where I'd have Lawrence ranked way higher, but that is in the range of outcomes. Going over to running back, we have Bijan, Montgomery. So we have a running back 2 that we can start. And we have Caleb for the long-term upside. We have Trey Benson, Dylan Sampson as quality depth. I don't even know what you could possibly say about this running back room. We go over to receiver. We have Addison, Higgins, Leggett, Marvin Mims on our bench. So we have guys that we could never sell for anything outside of Addison. And we really wouldn't be able to sell Addison for anything until like week 4 anyway. But they all reasonably have upside. And then we have Brock Bowers with no backup tight end. Structurally, I love your team. I think if we have an open IR slot, obviously you want to pick up Tajay Spears. You want to throw Spears in the IR. If you don't have an open IR slot, then I would still put Tajay Spears on your watch list. And there's a pretty high probability that Marvin Mims and or Xavier Leggett are zeros, right? They are guys that just simply aren't relevant in redraft leagues. And we'll probably know that pretty early on. And if we know that early on, then we'll be looking to drop them, of course. And if that's the case, like week 3, we know Marvin Mims is a 0. We can cut Marvin Mims. We can go pick up Tajay Spears before Spears is coming back. I like your team a lot. I think you're the number 1 team in the league analyzer. I don't like the fact that we are rostering 7 receivers in a start 7 league. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not like I can tell you that Addison, Higgins, Leggett, or Mims have trade value for you to get anything for them. Until Jordan Addison comes back from his suspension, you don't have the flexibility to trade away a player like Garrett Wilson. So maybe week 4, you can also look at a different potential trade where if like one of Jaden Higgins, Leggett, Marvin Mims hit in a big time way, and then we're getting Jordan Addison back from the suspension, that would make Garrett Wilson expendable, where you could potentially go through and you could sell Garrett Wilson for a different option. But that's just not a move that we can make right now with the Addison suspension. So I like your team. I think you're chilling with this team as is. You're the number 1 team in the league analyzer for a reason. And I think you just roll into the season as you have it. But really appreciate you and hope I was able to help you out in some way. Now, Idris Lloyd, always happy to see this, says, how can I make my team better? What player should we target in the trade? Judkins is on the waiver wire. Do we pick him up? So let's go ahead and let's check this out. Let me send over some free vouchers for you. We are Pit Stop Party. We are currently the 3rd team in the league analyzer. Looking at this, it looks like we already picked up Quinshon Judkins. Maybe we saw the video yesterday. It is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. So this is a league where we're rostering 8 receivers. I'm going to assume that Jalen Coker is on our IR. If Jalen Coker is not in an IR slot, then it's a very easy call. You just go ahead and you drop Jalen Coker. Like, he is not the quality of a player that's worth rostering on your bench for 4 weeks, waiting for him to hopefully come back in week 5. If he's on your IR, no harm, no foul in rostering him. Second thing that we're going to do here very easily is I think you pick your favorite quarterback between McCarthy and Love, and we're going to be picking them up off the waiver wire to play the matchups with Caleb Williams. I think that if you're looking at McCarthy and Caleb Williams, both of them have very low floors where maybe they're not usable in fantasy, but both of them have very high ceilings where they could turn into this year's Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, as a player that we didn't necessarily expect to be an every week starter, but they are guys that you're just jamming in. So I would like to get myself 2 shots at that. I think Torrey Horton is a player that may be viable in best ball, but how the hell are you ever going to play Torrey Horton over Malik Neighbors, Devonta Smith, or like Igbuka, Diggs, Jawan Jennings, Addison? This guy's never hitting your starting lineup. So I would cut Torrey Horton. I'd pick up JJ McCarthy. Looking over at running back, if Jalen Coker is not on our IR and he's actually taking up an open roster, I would go ahead and I would cut Jalen Coker and I would pick up Tyler Algier, because I think that Algier, if Bijan Robinson were to go down, Algier could have league winning upside. Going over and looking at what we have with the other receivers on waivers. I mean, I would opt to have Rashad Bateman and Xavier Legette over Torrey Horton again and Jalen Coker, but I think realistically, I probably prefer rostering McCarthy and Tyler Algier over the wide receivers just because we have so much wide receiver depth as is. So we don't necessarily need that. Going over to tight end, we have Trey McBride. So I think we're pretty comfortable just sitting with McBride and no backup tight end. So the number one thing to make your team better, and I think this honestly could jump you up to this top spot in the league analyzer, is cutting Torrey Horton, picking up McCarthy, and then if we can, cutting Jalen Coker and picking up Algier, or picking up Bateman or Legette. Now, if we're looking at potential trades to make with this team, it's going to be difficult. Because typically 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, what are we wanting to do? We're wanting to sell wide receiver depth, get upgrades inside the starting lineup, potentially get ourselves an elite quarterback. But the fact of the matter is, as of today, Igbuka has never played an NFL game. Stephon Diggs is coming off a torn ACL. Jordan Addison is dealing with a 3-game suspension. And Jawan Jennings has a calf injury. So the wide receiver depth pieces, we can say that, yeah, probably 1 or 2 of these guys, they're going to hit. But the fact of the matter is you don't know which one. And if you trade it away like Igbuka, Diggs turns out to be flat, Jawan Jennings doesn't come back from the calf, we may not have a viable wide receiver 3. So I would probably opt to not make a trade at this point, make the waiver wire pickups, and then once Jordan Addison comes back from his suspension, then at that point, you potentially could try to go through and sell like Devonta Smith or Igbuka with Caleb Williams to get yourself to an elite level quarterback. But we just simply can't do so right now. We have to wait until we get the viable options back when it comes to the depth wide receivers, such as Jordan Addison. But really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way here, my friend. And really hope we get to see you out in the live stream again soon. Let me make sure, yeah, we sent you over those free questions. So if you have any follow-ups, I'd be happy to take a look at it for you. But let me pivot over. Let's answer some of the quick questions real quick, like the start sit, trades, etc., etc. Okay, and I see people in the chat saying they're going to their fantasy drafts right now. Good luck, everyone. Good luck. But let's answer these quick ones. Jason here with the question says, ended with Chase and Higgins. Should I ship Higgins at all cost Best offer so far is McLaurin 1-for-1. Nope, you do not do this. If Joe Burrow gets injured, your season's probably over. But let's say you trade T. Higgins for Terry McLaurin and Joe Burrow gets injured. You still have Jamar Chase. Your season's still probably over. So for me, I play for the upside in fantasy football. I don't play to have the highest floor. Like realistically, if you were in, say, a league that is a 12-team format, your expected win rate's like 8.3%. So instead of optimizing for the highest floor possible, we should know that we're only going to win our league 8% of the time. We need to try to raise our ceiling. And I think the way that you raise your ceiling here is you make those consolidated bets. And if we're making the bet by having both Chase and Higgins on the same team, I think you're completely fine. Now, Somala, I know we always see you out here, my friend, and I know I always butcher your name. I say it different every single time, but appreciate you nonetheless. And here I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker over Chuba Hubbard. I have them ranked back-to-back personally, but I do think that if we are looking at Kenneth Walker, he's going to be in just a spot where we expect more big plays with his athletic profile, at least in my opinion. Now, Fantasy Football 9 coming through. This is Hampton, Jameson versus Kenneth Walker and Devonta Smith. I think Hampton's at a different tier than Kenneth Walker, and while I'm the biggest Devonta Smith guy ever, I don't necessarily know if I can say that like Smith is that much better than Jameson Williams. Like Jameson goes ahead of Smith in Underdog draft, so I'll go ahead and I'll take the Amari and Hampton side of this. Now, 87D109C says what to do with the 112 and the 201 rookie wide receiver or Javonte. Oh, okay. So this is a rookie draft. I would not take Javonte Williams at the 112 in a dynasty rookie draft, if that's what this is. If this is your regular redraft league, then obviously we wouldn't be considering either player there. Maybe I'm missing something, but a regular redraft league, I just say probably just follow like the rankings. And in a dynasty rookie draft that includes veterans, I probably wouldn't be looking at Javonte until the middle to end of the second round. Now, Willits, this is Chris Olave versus George Pickens for the flex. I'm going to be going with Pickens, even in the tough matchup against Philly. I think they are probably going to have to throw the ball a decent amount. Now, Angel in a flex pinch. We're going to be looking at Fields versus Purdy. I don't like the matchup for Fields playing Pitt, so I'm going to take Brock Purdy. Then going over and looking at what we have with the running back options, I'm going Brees over Trevion week 1, Trevion over Brees rest of season. Then here for the second wide receiver slot, I'm going to take probably J-Mo, and then in the flex, we'll go with Pickens. Not super excited to play Pickens again week 1, given the matchup you have against Philly. Now, Josh coming through. We need a running back between ETN, Jalen Warren. Week 1, I'm going to go Jalen Warren. I think that you probably don't expect a massive role for Caleb Johnson early in the season. It's going to take a little bit of time for him. And then here for the flex, I'm going to be taking Marvin Harrison, but Ted McMillan looks very interesting given all the injuries that we've had in Carolina. Now, Rat Reaper. This is Brian Thomas versus Kyron and Gesicki. This is going to be Brian Thomas, not even remotely close. Here, 14-team format, but still the fact of the matter is, since the Bengals signed Noah Fant, Gesicki is effectively a 0. Now, EV coming through. This is Bucky versus Kamara and Devonta Smith. I would personally rather have Bucky. It's a 10-team format, so looking at like what a roster spot's worth, you have like Jaden Higgins out there on waivers. So yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Bucky Irving. Now, Ray Charles says 8-team PPR guillotine, eliminations every 2 weeks. What is the strategy? It's a triple flex, 2 wide receivers, single super flex, 8-team league. I personally devalue the rookies specifically in that guillotine style contest, where we are a little bit more inclined to just go ahead and build around players that are going to give us production at the beginning of the season. So I would heavily avoid the suspended options, and not only the suspended options, but at the same time, probably the rookies like Jaden Higgins that maybe are going to take a little bit of time to get going, or Byshell Tootin, right? And then you can also say you flip RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson down the rankings, and you're pushing up guys like Javonte Williams. Sorry, not Javonte. You're pushing up guys like Jalen Warren. You're pushing up somebody like J.K. Dobbins. I would not stress about getting a viable QB2, because the thing is, if we're going to be looking at what we have here with this being an 8-team league, everybody should be able to get 4 starting quarterbacks on average. So like the elite QBs like Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, obviously they're still going to hold a tremendous amount of value. But the issue is going to be that the secondary quarterbacks aren't going to have that much value, and you're not going to really need to stress about getting them. So I wouldn't look at like traditional Superflex leagues, because traditional Superflex leagues, there is going to be a little bit of a difference when it comes to the supply and demand ratio of the quarterback position. But I think that's like the bullet points that we want to be covering here. But again, in comparison to the regular rankings, definitely move down the rookies, move down the suspended players, the guys that aren't going to give you production early. Now, Seth coming through with our next question. Here, we are going to take Trevion as our running back 2 over Montgomery. And then there in the flex, I'll probably take Montgomery over Travis Hunter week 1, but I'd imagine we're probably playing Travis Hunter in the long term. Now, let's move this back over and let's pull back up the teams. Now, Emmanuel R says, should I do anything about my running back room? Had the 104 in a 12-team league and stretched for a tight end in the 3rd, and I don't know if that messed me up, especially with potential splits for my running back room and Mixon and Judkins out for a while, possibly 4 weeks. So we are currently the number 1 team in the league analyzer, my guy. Let me also hook you up with a couple free questions. Love the profile pick. I feel like I don't see this bird very often. But let me address this too. Derek says, I don't think you can get a team review with the season pass. Yes. So again, it's all laid out there on the site. If you ever go to like try to buy a season pass or anything, it'll just tell you exactly what you get. But with the season pass, you get the free vouchers for start sit and trade questions. The annual Mother Flocker gets you the free vouchers for start sit, trade questions, and team reviews. So you don't get a free team review with the season pass. You get the free vouchers for the other stuff. If you wanted the free team review, that would be with the annual Mother Flocker. But Emmanuel, here you have the number 1 team in the league analyzer. So overall, I think that you are in a really good spot. And what I love to see with your team, absolutely love it, is yes, our team is toast at the beginning of the year with some of these running back injuries / suspensions with Judkins and Joe Mixon. Like, our running back depth is shot. And we have no Jordan Addison early in the year. But what do we do here in the league where you start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, and we got Jamar Chase and Drake London with our first 2 picks? We rostered as many running backs as possible, which is exactly what you want to do in this kind of setup. If it is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, and we have the elite wide receivers at the top, we are in a very comfortable position. So wide receiver, we have the number one wide receiver in the league with only rostering 4 names: Chase, London, DK Metcalf, Jordan Addison. But again, you can only start 3 wide receivers at the very most. So absolutely love this. We have the elite tight end with Trey McBride. There are interesting waiver wire wide receivers such as Rashad Bateman and Xavier Legette. But the fact of the matter is, I'm completely fine with us taking shots on running backs over these guys. Like, if it's an underdog best ball draft, for sure give me Xavier Legette. For sure give me Bateman over somebody like Ollie Gordon. But here, if the HN injury turns out to be serious, I understand the thought process wanting to hold on to Ollie Gordon going, okay, well, he is going to be somebody that we know we can get into our starting lineup if you have HN out. We never know for sure if it's going to be the week where Bateman has a long receiving touchdown. So I'm fine with us rostering the running backs here at the bottom over somebody like Rashad Bateman, Xavier Legette. Maybe my only thing that I would pivot is if we officially got like Devon Achane practicing week 1 where it looks like he is going to be playing, then at that point we probably want to go ahead and if like Achane's active for the game, just drop Ollie Gordon and pick up your favorite between Bateman and Legette. But for now, I think that this is exactly what we want. And then running back, well, we have 2 guys we can start early, right? We have Brees and we have Aaron Jones. In terms of the depth, it's a bunch of what ifs. What if Joe Mixon turns out to be viable? What if Braylon Allen turns out to be viable? What if Austin Eckler turns out to be viable? What if Jerome Ford turns out like one of these guys will work out for us? I can't exactly tell you which one, but this is kind of the exact situation that you want to find yourself in. We have quarterback Baker. Baker repeats what he did last year. Obviously, you're in a good spot. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to roster 2 QBs if Baker Mayfield was your QB1, but the options on the waiver wire are pretty limited, so I think we can just kind of leave this as is. So, I love your team. You're number 1 in the league analyzer. I think structurally, you did it great for your league settings with how we built out the bench. You've given yourself a lot of shots at finding a good running back. I can't guarantee I know which one is going to be great, but probably at least one of them will. So I don't think there's a single thing that I look to do here with this team, to be honest. Outside of if Achane's really out there playing week 1, probably dropping Ollie Gordon for like Legette. But great team. I don't think you do anything. I think you leave this as is. I wish I had more for you. Let me make sure I sent you over those free questions. I did. So if you have anything you want to follow up with, I'd be super happy to answer it for you. But I think we're just kind of holding strong with this. Now, Jared coming through with our next question says, hey, Mason, how do we do and who should we look to start week 1? So typically when people ask me, who are we going to start week 1, I forget to answer. So let me answer that right now. Quarterback, Kyler. Actually, I think we pick up another quarterback here, roster 2, but we're still going to go Kyler. Tight end, Ferg. Is there a tight end on the waiver wire? No, we're going to start Ferg. Wide receiver, Nico, Neighbors. And then we're also going to go Ladd and Tyreek in the flex. Very easily. I mean, our wide receiver room is just so much better than what we have at running back here. If this was a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, you would have fumbled the bag. This would be horrible and you need to make moves. But because this is a league in which you can start 4 wide receivers weekly, we're fine. Because you can get Tyreek Hill in as your 4th wide receiver. And I just made a video talking about selling Tyreek. But if Tyreek's your 4th wide receiver, you are A-okay. And I wouldn't even look to sell a wide receiver for a running back. I know we're 1st in the league analyzer at receiver. We are 10th at running back. We are 10th at quarterback. And we are 11th at tight end. So in a lot of spots like this, I would say, you know what? It's probably best for us to go through and try to sell a wide receiver depth piece, go get an upgrade either at QB, running back, or tight end. But the fact of the matter is we're going to get 4 of these wide receivers into our starting lineup. And if we are looking at what we have with the Rashee Rice missing the beginning of the year, Stephon Diggs coming off the torn ACL, we can't confidently say that we have like a wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6 with a ton of value. Like if we get to week 6 and we have Rashee Rice coming back from the suspension, then at that point, you are 100% in play, and you should, in week 6, look to go ahead and trade away Ladd McConkey and Jake Ferguson and go get Brock Bowers, go get Trey McBride. Or you should look to go ahead and try to sell Tyreek Hill and Kyler Murray and go get Jaden Daniels, go get Lamar, go get Allen. But until we get Rashee Rice back, we don't have that flexibility. And instead, we probably should just be sitting on our hands here when it comes to what we have with this phenomenal wide receiver room in a league where we can start 4 receivers weekly. So I like your team. We're leaving this as is for now. I would consider dropping Nick Chubb after week 1 if you don't like the role, to pick up another quarterback like Purdy to play the matchups with. But definitely not something that we need to do. You are in a really comfortable spot. But again, I think really you just kind of hold off until we're going to get Rice back. And then at that point, we look to sell a receiver and we either go get the elite onesie or maybe we upgrade at running back depending on how our running backs are performing. But let me, again, I really appreciate you. Hope I was able to help you out in some way. And again, I think you just really constructed a good team for the fact that you can start 4 receivers. Now, Qualk Ice with our next team says, hey Mason, love the content. Was going to go running back at the 312 401, but AJ Brown, how the hell was AJ? There's no way we're not the number 1 team in the league, right? Let's go ahead and let's set you up with some free vouchers. And yeah, looking at this, surprise, surprise, we are the number 1 team in the league analyzer, and there's a pretty big gap between us and the teams at the bottom as well. So this is a start 8 format. So we can start 4 wide receivers here weekly. So again, that's going to be very relevant with the amount of wide receiver depth that we can build around before we just have to go through and we have to sell wide receivers to upgrade at the onesies. But here, quarterback, we have Caleb and May. Looking at what's available on the waiver wire, you have absolutely nobody. So love the fact that we're rostering 2 quarterbacks given the landscape of the waiver wire. And we're probably just going to go ahead and we're probably just going to be playing the matchups between these 2 guys as time goes on. When we go over and when we look at what we have at running back, we have Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco, J.K. Dobbins. So we have 4 startable RBs in a league where you start 8 players, right? So really do think that it's going to be important here for us to have that kind of depth. I wouldn't mind at all if we eventually wanted to try to sell high on Tony Pollard if he starts off really hot with no Tajay Spears in his backfield. But for now, we're just going to be chilling with this squad. And then also, one thing that we could consider is if we can find a team in our league that really needs some help at running back. Like this team won't have Caleb Johnson available to them early. If they needed an additional starter, I think going through and maybe trying to send them J.K. Dobbins to give them an additional depth piece could help them out. And maybe we could try to make a 2-for-1 deal. Here, this team has Tyron Tracy as their RB2. Is there a world in which we could sell them like J.K. Dobbins and Travis Hunter and go get Xavier Worthy? Which, you know, some people have Travis Hunter ranked straight up over Worthy. So maybe you're not as inclined to do that. But I think Dobbins is maybe an expendable piece for us. If you wanted to wait just a bit and you wanted to see what the running backs like Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco look like at the beginning of the season before you were to go through and try to sell Dobbins to a running back needy team early, I think you're fine to do so. Going over to receiver, we have Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown. So we have 3 wide receiver ones in a league where we can start 4 receivers weekly. So you can still have some depth here below. We have Travis Hunter, Josh Downs, Jaden Higgins. So we have the upside. And then tight end, we're extremely weak. We have Dalton Kincaid. You have a phenomenal team for a start 8 format. Again, if this was a start 7 league, I would say, man, you really just need to go through. You really need to do what we can to sell a wide receiver. Let's try to pivot off of AJ Brown and Caleb Williams. Let's go try to get to Lamar Jackson. Let's try to go get to Josh Allen. But here, when you can get all these receivers in your starting lineup, I mean, you're fine with this as is. So if we were to look to make any trades at this point, I think that what you're probably going to do is you're going to wait to potentially get the Travis Hunter full-blown breakout where we do have a couple of these rookies that may start slow, like Travis Hunter, like Jaden Higgins. But once we get that breakout, if we could then pivot from one of the wide receivers that we have at the top, like A.J. Brown, over to the elite tight end, whether that would be Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, that would be something that's interesting for us to look at. But again, I don't think you need to be making that trade right now. I think you're probably instead waiting until we get the official breakout from one of those rookies. It doesn't need to be both of them, but preferably at least one of them. And then in terms of waiver wire moves that we're going to make today, I would cut Ollie Gordon for Byshell Tootin the second that we get like official word that like, hey, Achan's legitimately going to be playing week 1, which right now that's what they're telling us. Maybe you need to see Achan actually out there warming up for the game. And then at that point, you go ahead and make the swap. But that would be a swap that I would look to eventually make. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you. You have the number 1 team in this league by far. Your league mates really messed up by letting you get A.J. Brown where you did. We sent you over some free questions. I think you just make that one small waiver wire pivot. And then during the season, we looked up great tight end, but I would want to have that breakout from one of the rookie receivers first. So let's move this over to Emmanuel. Says, this is my other team in an ESPN league, 107 in a 10-team league. Feeling very confident in this team, but I don't know what moves we should make, if any. So let me go ahead and pull this up for you, my friend. Really appreciate you. This is a league where we start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and 1 flex spot. So the wide receiver depth isn't going to be mattering much here. We go ahead and we look at the construction. We have the elite quarterback with Jalen Hurts. Going over and looking at the bench, we're not rostering another QB, which is perfect. We don't need one when we have Hurts. Going over to running back, we have the elite. How is this team remotely possible? Saquon Barkley's a round 1 pick. Drake London's a round 2 pick. Brock Bowers is a round 2 pick. We have all 3 of those players on our same team. Tyreek Hill goes in round 3. Here, we have him as our 4th best option on the team. Jalen Hurts goes in round 3 or 4. We have him as our 5th best option on this team. How did you possibly draft this? Running back, we have Barkley, James Conner. On the bench, we have Braylon, Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard, Dylan Sampson. We have Joe Mixon on the IR as well. Wide receiver, we have London, Tyreek, Jerry Jeudy in the flex. Then down on the bench, we have George Pickens, Deonta Thornton. Going over to tight end, we have the number 1 tight end in fantasy, and we're not rostering a backup. This is incredible. Like, there are just a few pivots that I probably want to be making. And very few. The first thing is looking at our bench. Deonta Thornton, I think, is an exciting player for underdog best ball drafts. Like, I think you could get some random spike weeks where if you draft him as your wide receiver 6 on underdog and he randomly gives you a usable, a couple usable weeks here, I think that could be exciting. But the fact of the matter is, in terms of predicting when that's going to happen and actually getting him into your starting lineup, I think it's going to be much easier said than done. So I would cut Deonta Thornton. I'd pick up another running back off waivers. And then another thing that I would potentially look to do, just because he's an expendable piece, is like Tony Pollard obviously looks to be really exciting at the beginning of the year when we have no Tajay Spears. But if you're telling me that like we currently have him on our bench here, what I would potentially look to do is see if we could get some value out of him from a running back needy team. Is there a world in which we can make a 2-for-1 deal and sell Tony Pollard and Jerry Jeudy and get an elite player in the flex? Because we have enough production elsewhere and we have the elite guys at quarterback and tight end, allowing us to roster as many running backs and receivers as we possibly can. So I would drop Thornton. I would try to trade Pollard and Jeudy in a 2-for-1 deal to get the best flex option you can get. And then outside of that, I think we're going to leave this as is. I think you have an incredible team, and honestly, I have no idea how you even drafted it. Okay, so Lions coming through. So this is my main redraft league. How do you think I did? The only position I really do not like are my running backs, but they were flying off the board early. So we are currently 7th in the league analyzer. And there is a gap between us and those top 4 teams. It looks like those top 4 teams may be crushed. So big thing that I need to be, actually, no, never mind. Completely ignore the league analyzer. This is a Superflex league. So it's pulling in 1 quarterback rankings. So you are getting severely punished by having the elite quarterbacks here with Lamar is your QB1 and Caleb is your QB2. So ignore the league analyzer entirely. We have the number 1 quarterback room in this league. So if this was pulling in Superflex values, then you would be much, much higher. But here, quarterback, obviously, we are sitting very pretty. Going over and looking at what we have with the options on the waiver wire, there are none. So, I mean, it would be nice if we had a 3rd starting quarterback, if we got a Daniel Jones for free, but we're not going to panic about this. Going over and looking at running back, we have an RB1 with Achane. We have an RB2 with Tracy. And then we have some depth shots for upside with JCM, Tank Bigsby, Woody Marks, and Rico Dowdle. Then we go over to receiver. We have a wide receiver 1 with London, a wide receiver 2 with Higgins. I mean, Devonta Smith, your wide receiver 3, is an extremely strong spot. Wide receiver depth is maybe a little bit shaky. Like for me, I know I'm an idiot. I would still maybe prefer Quentin Johnston over Isaac Tesla. And I understand that a lot of smart people would say that I'm very stupid for saying that. And maybe I am. But it's a league in which you can start 9 guys. So realistically, we're going to get 2 quarterbacks in, and we're probably able to start 4 receivers weekly. So the wide receiver depth actually does matter in your league here. And then we have the quality tight end with Sam Laporta, where we're not needing to roster another. And we look at the waiver wire for the tight end position. We have Elijah Arroyo and Dalton Schultz. So I would look at this team and say, we have the best quarterback room in it. We are slightly below average at running back. We're about dead average at wide receiver. And we're about dead average at tight end. So while, yeah, I agree we're slightly below average when it comes to the running back position, the fact of the matter is it's not the end of the world. If we have the combination of Lamar Jackson and Caleb Williams and we're just boat racing our league mates at QB in the Superflex spot, I think we have enough at running back in terms of the bench options that maybe Tank Bigsby, maybe JCM, maybe one of those guys turns into something, and all of a sudden something that we thought was a positional weakness is completely fine. So I don't make a single move with this team. I think that you've constructed it very well. I was worried before that we saw it was a Superflex roster, but with it being a Superflex league, I think you kind of keep this as is. But let me see. Ty says he's drafting in 20 minutes and to answer his question before then. Yes, sir. We'll go and we'll do the quick questions right now. Let me pull up the trade, start, sit, and super messages. And we'll get back to the team reviews in just 1 second. Okay. So this trade from Mark coming through. This is Devon Achane, Ladd McConkey versus Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson. Achane versus Neighbors, give me Neighbors. Ladd versus Wilson, give me Ladd. Afterwards, at running back, we'd have Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, Braylon Allen, Trey Benson. The 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. I guess Garrett Wilson is hitting our starting lineup with this. It's close. I think we probably go with the Neighbors side just because you have absolutely nothing to worry about, whereas Achane's dealing with the calf and missing practice. But it looks like we had 3 no likes on the stream. So if you haven't already, go down there, drop a like button, subscribe to the channel as well, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button if you want to come out to these live streams with us. I'm going to be live streaming every single day until Christmas. And also, drop your flockfantasy.com username in the chat. Every time we hit 100 likes on the stream, we give away free questions on the site. So make sure that the people who don't want to pay for questions or get the season pass, they can still get some questions in here for hanging out with us on the stream. But Hokum Orange, here with the start sit, we are going to be jamming in Cortland Sutton, and probably I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy over Rome. The more that I think about it, week 1 is just a great matchup for Jeudy going up against the Bengals, and you have Flacco week 1 as well. So I think you're in a fine spot to go in that direction. Now, attract coming through, and we need to get this set up again. Give me 1 second. And actually, this is probably going to be perfect timing for me anyway to go ahead and pick a winner from the chat. We got Grimpus. Let's see if I can find you on the site real quick, my friends. And if I can't, we'll move on to the next person. But again, I can only find y'all on my users page if you use code FLOCK to sign up to the site. Grimpus, I got you. I found you. So looks like this is a free account, so you shouldn't have had any free vouchers yet, but we just sent over some free vouchers for you now, my friend. So be happy to check anything out for you. Okay. But now let's move this back over to those questions. And we were on Hook'em Horns, and we were talking about wanting to start Jeudy over Rome because you have Flacco and you have the perfect matchup against Cincy. But attract coming through here for the flex. I may take Tet McMillan over Devonta Smith now that you have the Coker stuff as well, because now you have no Adam Thielen and you have no Coker. Let me see what the projections are for the receivers on Underdog. Because previously I was saying, why would we take the risk? Just play Smith. It's a known commodity versus the rookie. But now it's maybe a little bit tougher. Tet McMillan, they have a higher lower 66.5 receiving yards. That is crazy. They have Devonta Smith at higher lower 55.5. For reference, for how high 66.5 is, Tyreek's only at 71.5. So it looks like Tet is even more exciting than I was giving him credit for. Ducky with the start set. Here, Sutton's going to be an auto at wide receiver, and then Kamara's going to be the auto at flex. I don't think you need to think about that one much. Chicken with the trade. This is Henry Pickens versus A.J. Brown, Hampton, and JCM. Derrick Henry down tiered to A.J. Brown, and we're up tiering from Pickens to Hampton and getting paid JCM for our troubles. If this is a 12 or more team league, I'm understanding if you wanted to go with the A.J. Brown side. If there are only like 10 teams in this league, and if it's only a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, you probably just want to go with Henry. Now, Pace J coming through. Tight ends versus elite quarterback. I'd rather have Bowers over Allen. I'd rather have Chuba over Harvey. Loveland versus JCM, kind of up to you. So, frankly, fair deal. It's going to be up to you. I think there's a pretty big gap between Chuba and Harvey for me, though, so I'd probably go with the Allen side. Now, Pyro's return. Here, this was a trade question sent in, but there were no trade options. So I'm going to send over a free voucher for you so you can try to send this in again, my friend. Now, Evie Freeman. Here, this is Flowers, Olave, Debo versus Devonta Smith and Mark Andrews. Smith is the best player in this deal for me. It's a 10-team league. What's the option we get to pick up off the waiver wire? Jaden Higgins. If you get to pick up Jaden Higgins off the waiver wire, then sure, go get Devonta Smith. I wouldn't say to do that in every league, though, but your league is shallow enough. But Crayco coming through here for the flex. I think it's probably an easy spot to just play Pacheco. You have no Addison week 1. Ridley's in a horrible matchup against Denver. Now, Aiden L says, should I start Aaron Jones or Devonta Smith at the flex? I'm going to go with Smith. I am concerned that you may just have a pretty large Jordan Mason roll right out the gate for the goal line. Here, Cockbach is needing to potentially change out Caleb Johnson. I think Caleb's probably going to be the secondary running back in Pittsburgh to open up the year. I'd expect that Jaylen Warren's playing more snaps and Jaylen Warren's seeing more work. But I would go Downs if Downs plays. Downs if Downs plays, and I may even go Keenan Allen. Like, what's the week 1 underdog pick him for Caleb? Yeah, you cannot play Caleb Johnson. They have Caleb Johnson a higher, lower 22.5 rushing yards. You cannot play him. Okay. Now, Ty Just Glow says, this is a 1 quarterback, 3 wide receiver, 1 running back, 1 tight end, double flex, full PPR. How should I draft picking at the 3rd spot in a 10-team league? You hammer wide receivers. You're telling me we can start up to 5 wide receivers weekly and you're only needing to start 1 running back? If you can start up to 5 receivers weekly and you only have 1 positional requirement at RB, then yes, we are very easily just going receiver, 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 receiver. Hell, I mean, even as an example, at the 3 spot, I would go ahead and not take CeeDee Lamb over the elite running backs, to be honest. So, yeah, please punt running back and tight end there and just hammer in your receivers. Like, I want 6 wide receivers that I feel great about. Okay. And then I think we should be good to go with the quick questions, and we can go back over to the team reviews. And okay, let's pivot this over. We got Drake May Lover, always out in the streams. Appreciate you, my guy. Says, love the streams. Mason, which players should we try to trade for? So this is an 8-team format. 8-team league. Every deal we make is a 2-for-1, 3-for-1 trade to get the best player in the starting lineup. We have Stephon Diggs and Caleb Johnson out there on the waiver wire right now. So you are highly incentivized to do whatever you can to try to open up roster spots for free and be able to get solid players in here. Now, it's a Superflex league, so honestly, ignore the league analyzer. Like we would, I think, probably be the number 1 team here ahead of this squad if they were counting Superflex values, because our quarterback room is much better than theirs. But looking at our quarterback room, we have Hurts, which in an 8-team league is kind of an average QB1, to be honest. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. Like, do not get me wrong. But like 12-team league, I'm like, oh, we have an elite QB. 8-team league, it's like, oh, everybody's going to have a much better quarterback. So this is kind of the range that you're looking at. So I feel good about Hurts QB1. Drake May QB2. If it was a 12-team format, I would love it. With it being an 8-team league, a little bit worse than it otherwise would be. And Tua QB3, if it was a 12-team league, I would love it. 8-team league, it's kind of whatever. So if this was a 12-team format, I'd be really excited about your quarterback room. But with an 8-team league, I think it's right dead in line with the average. Running back, we have Chase Brown, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey. This is the worst running back room you could imagine in an 8-team league. This is the worst thing about our team. And I would love this team again if it was a 12-team format. DeAndre Swift as your RB2 is great. Chase Brown as your RB1 is great. RJ Harvey as your running back 1 is great. But here you can see in the league analyzer as well that for an 8-team league, we are dead last with it. Looking at what we have at receiver, we are incredibly strong. We can start 4 receivers weekly. We have St. Brown, Nico, Evans, Hunter, Rice, Egbuka, and tight end we have Kittle. So here's my play. I'm not doing anything in the short term. Because in the short term, you're going to have Travis Hunter potentially taking a little bit of time to get you the full-blown breakout. Egbuka, also a rookie. We just don't know what the usage is going to be like at the very beginning of the season. We can expect it to be good. We can be excited about the possibility, but we can't guarantee it. And then we have no Rashee Rice for the first 6 weeks, and it's a league. And actually, no, never mind. This is a super flex league where you only start 8 players. That's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. I lied to you. We sell the elite wide receiver and we try to go get an elite running back. Can we sell Mike Evans and Chase Brown for McCaffrey? Can we sell Nico Collins and DeAndre Swift for Bijan? Can we sell Nico Collins and DeAndre Swift for Gibbs? Can we sell Nico Collins and DeAndre Swift for Barkley? Can we sell Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift for any of 3 of those running backs? I would honestly tell you as well, like if I was just being objective about this, can we sell Nico Collins and Drake May for Lamar Jackson? Can we sell Nico Collins and Drake May for Josh Allen? Now, our name is Drake May Lover, so I know we're not doing that. But 2 wide receiver, single flex format, 8-team league. We need to do what we can to just go out of our way and get the elite quarterback or the elite running back at almost any cost. Even though we have the rookie wide receivers at the bottom, and even though we have Rashee Rice out for the first 6 weeks, frankly, it just does not matter. But I think that's the main thing. If we were able to transition some of that value out to one of those other positions, I think it'd be in a very good spot. And again, I would like to honestly upgrade from May to the true elite quarterback, because here in a start 8 Superflex league, 25% of our offensive player requirements are going to be just QBs. So realistically, like 40% of our weekly output is going to come from the quarterback position. That is massive. So again, I personally would look to sell somebody like May, but I completely understand if your name is Drake May Lover and it's like, hey, I view Drake May in that same elite tier, I'm not going to fault you for leaving it as is. And then Drake May says, who is the better sell out of Nico and Amon-Ra St. Brown? I have them ranked back to back at wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. So those trades that we talked about, frankly, I wouldn't care. It's just going to be your personal preference. And honestly, it's probably going to come down to the personal preference of the person that you're trading with as well. I think you would just kind of let them tell you who they prefer, and whoever they prefer, that's probably who we're going to try to give them. But I really appreciate you, my guy. I like the team a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think you potentially, if this was pulling in the Superflex values, would be the number 1 team in the league analyzer. But I think you got to take some of that wide receiver value and parlay it. Okay. And let me go through and let me get you set up with some of those free vouchers, my friend. And yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us in the live streams. And all I ask is, actually, I'll be able to see it. The league analyzer is pulling in correctly. I was going to say, when you send in a trade question, let me know it's a super flex league, but the league analyzer is pulling that all in correctly. So I should be able to see it, my friend. Okay, but let's move this over to Dilly's question or team. So should I give up a running back or a receiver for a better QB and tight end, or should I sit and wait until after week 1? I play the Tex person week. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's look at this. Our team is Big Johnson's. We are 5th in the league analyzer. This is a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So for me, in a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, I would like to build around an elite quarterback. I would like to build around an elite tight end, because the depth wide receivers and the depth running backs will be incredibly easy to come by. And we can kind of see this as well just with the options on the waiver wire in your league. Like, we go ahead and we look at what we have on waivers. You currently are sitting with Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, Jaden Higgins, Braylon Allen, all out there on the waiver wire. And the fact of the matter is, it's difficult for me to tell you, let's go through and let's go pick up these super exciting options, because we look at what we have on the roster currently. It's like, okay, well, I can't cut Matthew Golden to pick up Josh Downs. So, here, let me move this over and think real quick. What could we possibly do? I think waiver wire wise, looking at what's available at wide receiver and running back, I think the ability for Kyle Pitts to turn into an every week starter on your team is probably pretty low. I understand we have the rookie wide receivers. But I'm sorry, we have the rookie tight end with Loveland, but I just don't know if I start Loveland. I'm sorry, bench Loveland in favor of Kyle Pitts early in the season. Obviously, Loveland gives you so much more long-term upside. And then we look at options on the waiver wire. I don't know if like Kyle Pitts is that much different than like Jonnu Smith, Britton Strange, Kate Ott, and Isaiah Likely at this point. Looking at what we have with the waiver wire running backs, though, you can go and pick up Braylon Allen. Realistically, if you were to get a Breece Hall injury, Braylon Allen's a league winner. Right? In a way that I don't think Kyle Pitts has in his range of outcomes. So I would cut either Kyle Pitts or Ramondre Stevenson in favor of Braylon Allen. I think that will bump us up our running back room a bit with the league analyzer. And also looking at this as well, given the depth that we have at wide receiver and running back, right? Where we have Lamb, Wilson, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, and then we're going to have to choose between the flexes of Amari Hampton, Cortland Sutton, Igbuka, Matthew Golden. I think you have the ability to potentially go ahead and upgrade to an elite quarterback. The way that I think you can go about it is selling Amari and Hampton because we have the top end running backs, and especially because we were going to be able to bring in some of these running backs off the waiver wire. So if I was looking at this, I would probably try to trade Hampton and Brock Purdy, see if we could get to Lamar Jackson, see if we could get to Josh Allen. If we can do that, at that point, we can drop Trevor Lawrence. We'll have 3 open roster spots because we drop Pitts, we drop Lawrence. We made the 2-for-1 deal to upgrade QB. We go to the waiver wire, and with those 3 open roster spots, we backfill with running backs that have a chance to actually turn into league winners with Braylon Allen, Byshell Tootin, and then your call between Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson. If you're not able to get the elite level quarterback, you could also go for the elite level tight end, where you go ahead and you sell Amari Hampton and Loveland, and you see if we can get to Trey McBride, you see if we can get to Brock Bowers. You sell Garrett Wilson and Loveland, you see if we can get to George Kittle. But I think based off the depth that we have at running back and receiver, and based off the fact that this is a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I think you need to upgrade either your quarterback or tight end position. I don't know if you can get away with having this much running back and wide receiver depth. But I think that's all I got for you, my friend. Again, a lot of this is really going to be dependent on your league settings. And with your league settings of only needing to start 2 receivers, 1 flex in a 10-team league, you don't need to worry that much about running back wide receiver depth. or wide receiver depth in particular. But let's move this over to Nico Returns. Is picked at number 2. Just would like to hear your thoughts on the team, any potential moves/trades I can make, as well as any advice you have for me going into the season, given how my team is built. So here we are currently 3rd in the league analyzer. It's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 12-team format. We have the elite quarterback with Allen, which I really like if we only need to start 3 receivers. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, A.J. Brown, Ted McMillan, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins. We're built around the elite level wide receivers at the top. Went with the pseudo 0 running back builds. I like that we're rostering more running backs than we are wide receivers with this team. A potential flip that I would look to possibly make is I wouldn't mind rostering Ramondre Stevenson over Dylan Sampson. I understand Dylan Sampson's more likely to be the starting running back in his own backfield, but at the same time, I just don't know what the ceiling is in comparison to what you have with the possibility to be the starting running back in New England in comparison to Cleveland. Obviously would take a Trevion Henderson injury. We have the top tight end upside with Tyler Warren. I like your team a lot. If like Ted McMillan and Travis Hunter both absolutely smash, then at that point, obviously one of the wide receivers is expendable to trade for a better running back too. But we just simply don't know if we can say that's going to be the case right now, considering the fact that we haven't seen Ted, we haven't seen Hunter. So maybe one smashes, maybe one's a little bit disappointing. Having 2 of them on our team, we can walk away with at least 1 elite flex. And then so I like that we're just rostering as many running backs as possible. We don't have a backup quarterback. We don't have a backup tight end. So for your league, for your team, I really like it. I like the construction. And honestly, I don't think there's a single move that I make trade-wise. I think the only potential move that I'm making is dropping Dylan Sampson and picking up Xavier Legette. But I really like the team. I wish I had more for you. Now, let's move this over to our next one. This is, I love you, Mason. Appreciate you, my friend. I know I always see you in the YouTube chat, says, my first 14-team league. The league analyzer says we're looking good. Went no running back in the draft and drafted pre-Brian Robinson trade. Do you think I just keep my team as is or trade for running back help? So 14-team league, the depth is going to be a little bit more important than it would be at running back in a 10 or a 12-teamer. So if I'm looking at what we potentially could do with this roster, I agree. I think we want to be building around, or I don't want to say building around. Maybe that's a poor choice of words. I think we want to be upgrading running back if we can. I think if this was like a 12-team format, it would be so much easier. But 14-team league, the difficult part of this is going to be like, how can we find somebody that has an expendable running back to give us? Because like week 1, we're getting rolled. Obviously, we love having Lamar at quarterback. Obviously, we love having Trey McBride at tight end. We have CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 1. That's great. We have Zay Flowers in at wide receiver 2. We are having to roll out RJ Harvey and Dylan Sampson as our 2 running backs week 1. Jaden Reed may not even be healthy week 1. You may need to be rolling out Christian Kirk. So for our team at this moment, I hate to say it, and you know, you're in this live stream enough to see me just over and over repeat myself saying, let's try to trade for the elite level quarterback. Let's go get the elite level tight end. 14-team format where your running back room is this week. I'm sorry, we have to trade away the elite QB. We can't afford him. Like an elite quarterback or an elite tight end is a luxury. It's very easy to afford in a 10-team league, but in a 14-teamer, it's a lot harder. Especially when Judkins looks like he's a 0 early, Robinson looks like he's a 0 early, and we don't know about Dylan Sampson. So what I'm going to be doing in this instance is I would be trying to sell Lamar, especially knowing that if we're looking at what we have with Caleb Williams, realistically, Caleb can be a viable QB1 in a 14-team league. So if we go through and if we look at some of the teams that have a bunch of running backs, I mean, that team doesn't have a lot of them. They just have the elite name with Barkley. This team has 3 running backs with Gibbs, Kyron, and Pacheco. The issue with trading with this team is they're going to have Joe Burrow. So we kind of got to find a team that has expendable running back value and not an elite quarterback. Like this team has expendable running back value, but they also have Josh Allen. So there's no way they're going to be trading for Lamar Jackson. What about this 6-7 team? They have no additional running back value. They have Trevion, Jalen Warren, and Jerome Ford. What about this team? They have Barkley, Swift, Eckler. So they only have 3 running backs. This team is Bucky, Chuba, Caleb, Bigsby. I doubt this team would make the deal. I'm going to send it anyway. Can we offer them Lamar Jackson for Kyler Murray and Bucky Irving? Hell, we'll throw in Dylan Sampson. Can we offer them, or honestly, let them keep Kyler? Actually, no, we want Kyler. Can we go like Kyler and Dylan Sampson for, Lamar and Dylan Sampson for Bucky and Kyler? They probably reject, but let's get the offer out. This team has Herbert and Tua. Can we offer them Lamar and Judkins for Jonathan Taylor and Justin Herbert? This team 8th in the league analyzer. This team has Jordan Love. They have James Cook. Can we offer them Lamar for Jordan Love, James Cook, and some fab dollars? Or we get Stephon Diggs added on. Lamar for Love, Cook, Diggs. This team, we're not interested in James Conner at that cost. This team has Burrow. I mean, I'll offer them Lamar for Kyron and Burrow for sure. I just don't think they accept. This team is Stroud. I would offer them Lamar for Stroud and Achane. This team is Kamara. Probably not worth it for us. So that's going to be the main thing we are trying to do. I think whether it's at quarterback or whether it's at tight ends, I think you're probably a little more likely to be able to sell Lamar Jackson than you are to be able to sell Trey McBride. And I think you're a little more inclined to sell Lamar as well because we have Caleb, so we already have the viable replacement on our team. I think we're trying to go through and we're trying to just get some positional depth there, especially at the running back position, and sell Lamar Jackson to get it done. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way here, my friend. And let me make sure that I set you up with some free vouchers here in case you have anything else that you want to send my way. I know you're in with us in the live stream a bunch. I need to turn this fan on. I'm sweating. At some point, I'm going to need a bathroom break, but now Mixtape coming out with our next team and has just an absolute wild team name. But here, looking at this, it says, "What's up, Mason? Feel like I have one of the better teams in the league. Was hoping to maybe trade some receivers for running backs, but nobody's willing to trade. Any advice you have for me? I was thinking about picking up Judkins and Spears on the IR, but we need to drop someone to appreciate the help." Okay, so if we have an open IR slot, yeah, definitely in a 12-team format, we need to go out there. We need to pick up Spears. So looking at what we have with this team, we are number 1 in the league analyzer currently. So we have a lot of value on the squad. And yes, we have a lot of that production at wide receiver. So it's a league in which you can only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So for me, I agree in general. I think that I want to be going through, and if we can, I want to be selling a wide receiver and getting an upgrade at the running back position. It's not that big of a, you have a phenomenal team here. This is incredible. Like quarterback, we have Allen, McBride at tight end. So ultimately we are sitting in a really, really pretty spot that we're not having to stress with rostering a backup quarterback or a backup tight end. This is legitimately perfect. Going over and looking at what we have at wide receiver and RB. Like, Wide receiver, we have Chase, wide receiver 1, DJ Moore, wide receiver 2. We're choosing the flex between Egbuka, Ridley, and Pearsall. So obviously we don't need all 3 of those receivers. Kind of goes without being said. If you were to sell one of them, generally I think the mistake that people try to make where they're just not going to get much interest in like other people in their league going through and trading for these players is they try to sell like the bottom of the depth pieces. Because like you have 4 wide receiver depth pieces with DJ Moore, Egbuka, Ridley, Ricky Pearsall. DJ Moore is my favorite out of this list, and I think DJ Moore is probably the favorite for a lot of people out of this list. Now, with that being said, am I wanting us to go through and sell like Ricky Pearsall and Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt for the best running back we can get? Yes, but I don't think you're going to be able to sell Ricky Pearsall and Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt for a nice price. I think realistically what you're probably going to need to do is I think you're probably going to need to try to sell DJ Moore and Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt, DJ Moore and Javonte Williams. I think that's the wide receiver we're throwing out there in those 2-for-1 deals to try to bring in another running back because we're going to be chilling at wide receiver regardless, especially knowing that you're going to be able to just go to the waiver wire and you're going to be able to just pick up Egbuka. I'm sorry, not you're picking up Egbuka. You put him in the lineup, but we're going to be able to pick up Jaden Reed or Jaden Higgins for completely free. So for me, I think you're in a really comfortable position. I don't think that there's much I'm going to stress about with this team. I think you have by far and away the best team in the league here. And if I were to look to do anything, it's probably we sell DJ Moore and a running back to get the best RB that we can in return. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know what price our league mates are going to be willing to pay considering the fact that Jaden Reed and Jaden Higgins are on the waiver wire for free. But for us, that's why we'd be willing to like quote unquote overpay for the running back upgrade. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my friend. And again, I wish I had more for you, but I think you just dominated your league, especially considering your league settings where you only start 2 receivers and 1 flex, and we got ourselves an elite quarterback and elite tight end. So let me send you over some free vouchers, my friend. That way, just in case you want to send anything else on the stream for us, would be happy to check it out. Now let's move this over to our next team. It's going to be Lucas the Brave. Says, just finished drafting my first money league. I had pick 13 in this 14 team format. I think I need to prioritize tight end. Plus we have Mixon on the IR with the extra roster spot. What should we look to do? Thanks for helping me out and keep up the good work. Really appreciate you, my friend. And 14 team league, typically there, I'm not as excited about getting the elite tight end or the elite quarterback. Obviously they're going to score just as many points as they would in a 12 team format, but 14 team league, typically it's going to be a little bit tougher for us to build around running back and wide receiver. Just the depth isn't really going to be there. So let's pull up our team in the league analyzer. And first thing is we have Spencer Rattler. Are there any other quarterbacks on the waiver wire? Cut Spencer Rattler and pick up Geno Smith. I understand 14 team league. We definitely want to be rostering 2 quarterbacks if everybody else in our league is, because you go through and you look at the waiver wire and the waiver wire is just filled with absolute garbage, right? We want to be excited about putting Aaron Rodgers or Anthony were starting lineup. So I agree. I think we want to be rostering a second quarterback. It's just that Geno Smith is going to be a significantly more appealing option than Spencer Rattler. Right now, the Saints have actually fallen behind the Browns, and they currently project to be the worst offense in the NFL. So make that pivot, and you're going to immediately move up in the league analyzer. Going over and looking at what we have at running back, we have Mixon on the IR, so we're not able to put Tajay Spears on the IR, and for that reason, I think we leave this as is. Now, one thing that I personally would do is with the injury to Jaden Blue, I think I would be a little more inclined personally to roster Miles Sanders over Rico Dowdle, just in case we end up seeing on Thursday that Miles Sanders is like split in the backfield 50-50 in Dallas. The backfield is wide open. Well, more likely than not, yes, it's going to be Javonte Williams is a starter, and more likely than not, none of these guys are going to be viable. There is a 10 to 20% chance Miles Sanders just takes over as the lead back. which I think the possibility that Rico Dowdle does that is going to be so much lower. So for me, I would drop Dowdle. I would pick up Miles Sanders. If Sanders is a horrible roll Thursday night, then we can go ahead and pick up Dowdle again. Going over to receiver, this is an incredible team for a 14-team format. We have Brian Thomas, Mike Evans, Tyreek, and Devonta Smith. So I am completely fine having a player like Devonta Smith down here on our bench in a 14-team league where the depth is going to be much harder to come by. Now, if you really wanted to go through and if you really wanted to leverage your team up and you wanted to trade a wide receiver and go see if we can get a tight end upgrade, see if we can go and sell Mike Evans for George Kittle, sure, let's go ahead and let's try. But the thing is, we look at the wide receivers on the waiver wire and there's pretty much nobody. So my thought process typically when we look at something like this is you could afford to sit here and just have Smith on the bench until Brandon Ayuk comes back. And when Ayuk comes back, then at that point, maybe you have the expendable wide receiver where we could go through and make a trade. And there probably will be teams halfway through the season that are absolutely dying at wide receiver that would be happy to pay up for one. But I think before that happens, we're probably going to be sitting on our hands and we're probably not going to make that kind of move. Going over and looking at the tight end position, we have Jonnu Smith, Dalton Schultz. And then on the waiver wire, we have Isaiah Likely, Elijah Arroyo. So for me, I know Isaiah Likely is going to be missing the first few weeks at the beginning of the season. But I think long-term, Isaiah Likely does just have a much higher ceiling than Dalton Schultz. If you wanted to hold on to Schultz at the beginning of the year just to make sure that we had a tight end that's viable if Jonnu Smith turns back into a pumpkin, I'm okay if you decided to do that. But I think eventually you'd be looking to possibly drop Dalton Schultz and pick up a different tight end, whether that's Isaiah Likely coming back from an injury or Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, or Terrence Ferguson breaking out as a rookie. But 14-team league, very different than some of the other teams you're going to see in this live stream. Here, this is a spot where we're fine punting tight end. It's very important to build out running back, wide receiver depth. I love what you did with this team. Drop Spencer Rattler for Geno Smith right this second. Consider dropping Rico Dowdle for Miles Sanders. Consider dropping Dalton Schultz for Isaiah Likely, but you're probably not doing that until later. And then honestly, waiver wire moves, I don't think you need to make any. I think you're in a great trades. I don't think you need to make any right now. I think you're in a great spot. Once Ayuk comes back, then we sell a wide receiver and we could possibly upgrade tight end then, but not right now. But I really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my friend. And really hope I get to see you out in another stream soon. Let me make sure I hook you up with some free questions. So if you wanted to send anything to follow up with, we got you. Okay, so let's move this over to Michael, who obviously is always out here with us in the streams. Really do appreciate you. Let me just set you up with a ridiculous amount of free questions, my guy. I think you're actually in the chat right now. Let me send over 3 free start sit questions for you and 3 free trade questions. That way you should be good to go for this season. I appreciate you hanging out with us so much, my guy. Says I was going to try to reach on Kyle Pitts, but I misclicked. Please don't be so harsh on me missing him out on the first round. I know that's misvalue. Hope you fly through the rest of the review, brother. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you so much for hanging out with us so much, as we already said, my guy. And also, I see you out in the chat. So if there's anything that you wanted me to look at while we go through this, please don't hesitate to let me know and be happy to clarify anything we talk about or any questions that you have. But this is a 12-team half PPR start 2 wide receiver 1 flex league. So here, obviously, we still want the wide receivers at the very top, but the wide receiver depth not going to be super, super important. Starting off at quarterback, having the combination of Caleb and Justin Fields, really strong pairing that we can just go ahead and play the matchups with where we're really not stressing whatsoever. Going over and looking at running back, obviously more excited about Derrick Henry in that half PPR format as opposed to a full PPR league. Looking at what we have with Trevion as our running back 2, completely fine with Trevion as RB2. We have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Quinshon Judkins, Brian Robinson as running backs that we don't need but are just upside shots. Looking at what's available on the waiver wire, we don't have a ton here. me think. So I think realistically, I don't know what the hell we would do at running back, whether it's a trade or a waiver wire move. I think you're kind of locked and loaded as is. Wide receiver, we have St. Brown, Devonta Smith as our top two options. We have Sutton down there in the flex. We have Hunter, Downs, Luther Burden as just pure upside plays. We have George Kittle at tight end. Love the team construction. Structurally, I don't think that there's anything that we do. The only trade that I would potentially, and also waiver wire, I mean, we have the best players. Our options are much better than what's on waivers, so we want to make any changes. The only trade that I could potentially see making sense for this team, if we're trying to map something out, is there are two different worlds. There's a world in which Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, Brian Robinson, Quinshon Judkins, all three of these running backs turn out to be literally nothing. They're just straight up zeros this year. And if that is the case, then we probably end up needing to trade for a running back during the season. And the leverage piece that we are going to have is going to be if we get a breakout from either Travis Hunter, Josh Downs, or Luther Burden, then Cortland Sutton, Devonta Smith, these are two wide receivers that should have a considerable amount of value, and we could potentially look to go through and we could look to sell them. But again, what that's going to require is that's going to require us to get the breakout from either Travis Hunter, Josh Downs, or Luther Burden. We just need one of those guys breaking out. We don't need a bunch. But if we get one of those breakouts and then all of a sudden the wide receiver does become expendable for us, then at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to try to go ahead and we're going to try to sell Smith, Sutton for either a running back if JCM, Judkins, Brian Robinson turn out to be zeros, or a better quarterback if we end up getting one of those running backs up. I mean, running back breakouts. I don't know why I can't talk right now. But the thought process is if Travis Hunter and Quinshon Judkins both break out and they both end up being viable options, then we're going to have plenty of skill positional depth here in a league where we only have to start two wide receivers and one flex, where it probably makes a lot of sense for us to just go ahead and for us to look to sell one of the wide receivers and go get the elite level quarterback. But if you don't have a breakout at both positions, if one of the positions breaks out and the other one doesn't, then at that point, you probably need to hold on to the skill positional depth that we have. And if it's the scenario where you get the wide receiver breakout, no running back breakout, maybe we transition some of that skill positional value from wide receiver to running back. But I know that's a whole lot of nonsense. Let me know if that made sense, my guy. Let me know if you have any additional questions. And overall, I mean, the main reason I don't have anything for us to do right now is I think that you're in a really good spot and there's not much I can say for you to do today. But really appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. Okay, so let's move this over. And what we're going to do real quick is we are going to pull back up the quick questions and we will answer the quick trade, start sit, super messages, and we'll go right back to the team reviews. But here, this is a trade from Richard. This is Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Downs versus RJ Harvey, Quinshon Judkins, and Ramondre Stevenson. So Pacheco versus Harvey, up to you. Give me Downs over Judkins. Give me White, Ramondre, up to you. I'm probably going to go with the Pacheco side in that case. The scenario in which I could see this trade making sense for you is if you're like, man, I'm not really starting Pacheco regardless. If it's Pacheco versus RJ Harvey, whoever I'm looking at is just upside in the second half of the season. And then sure, if that's going to be the case, we can go ahead and we can pivot to Harvey. But if any of these running backs you'd use early in the season, I want Pacheco. Now, Kavig coming out says, do we need to trade Higgins for an upgrade at running back too? I don't like the price, but it's a 14-team league. 14-team league, if this is the best you get, this is the best you get. You need to get a better running back too. 14-team league, running backs off the waiver wire are going to be difficult to come by. Again, I would definitely try to get a better price than this. I mean, I would like to keep Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt at the very least. 14-team league, I think JCM's going to make a decent difference on your roster. Okay, now Boogie with the trade. This is Taylor versus Hampton and Devonta Smith. 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So give me the best player. Give me Jonathan Taylor. I love Devonta Smith, but he doesn't make that big of a difference in this format. Now, me Dottie. This is Puka Nacua and RJ Harvey versus Josh Jacobs and Ladd McConkey. Ooh. So it matters that this is a little bit of a deeper league. This is a 12-team start 8 format. If this was like a 10-team start 7, I think in that case, I would probably go ahead. I'd probably just get the best player with Puka Nacua. But with this being the deeper league and you having both Jacobs and Ladd McConkey as unquestioned, locked and loaded starters every single week, I think you can go ahead and you can take that side. Now, Jay James coming through. We need 2 flex spots. Cortland Sutton will be a lock, and Devontae Adams will be as well. Obviously, George Pickens is exciting, especially with no Micah Parsons. They're probably going to throw the ball a bunch. But it is a tough matchup that you have going up against the Philadelphia Eagles week 1. Okay. Now, Bryn is able 10. This is Chuba and Calvin Ridley versus JCM and Cortland Sutton. Chuba's the best player in this deal. It's a 10-team format. I'd rather have Chuba over Sutton. I'd rather have Ridley over JCM. So I'm going to take the Chuba side. Like, you would really have to be convinced that JCM is the starting running back, unquestioned, in Washington if you were going to make this pivot. And if you were 100% convinced on that, then sure, I mean, you can go ahead and you can make the swap. Okay. Now, Rat Reaper out again with the start set. Here, running back, I mean, there's no way in, like, is this really our team? I guess 14-team format. Yeah, we'll take Caleb over Judkins week 1, but Caleb Johnson's going to get smoked week 1. Like, don't get me wrong, it's better in a 14-team league than it otherwise would be, but it's not great. Not great. Okay, let's move this back over and let's get to some more of the teams. And here's what I'm going to do real quick. To make sure y'all don't leave me as I go pee. When we get back, we'll give away some of the free questions for the start set questions and the trade. So just give me 1 second. And we'll give those start set and trade vouchers when I get back, but I got to pee. All right, we are back. Spam your flogfantasy.com username in the chat real quick, and we'll hook y'all up with some free vouchers. Okay. And we are slowly but surely catching up on questions. So we got a decent amount of these 2-day-old questions. Teams waiting for us. Then we're over to the 1-day-old teams. Okay, well, let's pick somebody random. We got Dash 67 out here. Let's see if I can find you on the users page. Dash 67. Gotcha. Looks like you got the season pass as well, so you should already have some free vouchers given to your account, but we just sent over some more, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with us in the stream. And let's go ahead. Let's get into this for Kevo331. And of course, I'll let the dog out of the room for 1 second. She's barking. Let me get her. Never mind. It's the brother just got home. But anyway, Kevo, I'm sorry it took us so long to get to this for you. Let's go ahead and let's dive in. So we are the Simons Empire. We are currently second in the league analyzer. Pretty big gap between us, the top 3 teams, and everybody else in the league. It is a 12-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. Looks like pretty big benches, considering the fact that like the options on the waiver wire are very limited. So typically I would say that if we're looking at like a Josh Allen team, I am not really wanting to roster a second quarterback, but here looking at the other QBs that we have available to us on the waiver wire, I don't think we need to be making a change. Like if you drop McCarthy, what are we that excited to pick up? Are we that excited to pick up Woody Marks? Are we that excited to pick up Luther Burden? I guess Luther Burden probably would be my favorite pickup out of this list, but ultimately, I think you're okay with McCarthy. Now, looking at what we have at running back, we have Bijan, Trevion, RJ Harvey, and Byshell Tootin. So love this running back room for the reason that we don't need RJ Harvey early in the season. Like, if you were looking at RJ Harvey, he's probably going to be playing either in a timeshare or just as kind of the straight up pseudo backup to J.K. Dobbins early in the year, but obviously we have a lot of upside with RJ Harvey as the year goes on. So I like rostering him as an RB3 if we don't really need him, especially as we have the anchor with Bijan Robinson. So I think we're in a good spot at running back. Wide receiver, we have A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, Ricky Pearsall, Stephon Diggs, Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins. It's a league in which you can only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Your team's really strong. The only thing to do with your team is there an upgrade that we can make at tight end? Let me hook you up with some free questions just in case like these suggestions we come up with, you get counters with them. But looking at what we could potentially do at tight ends, if we were to sell A.J. Brown for Brock Bowers, our wide receiver room wouldn't be that bad. Because if you got, say, Bowers on this roster, what you could do is you could turn around and with the waiver wire, you could pick up Luther Burden and Woody Marks and give yourself a little bit more upside for the flex spot. Just with the additional names, maybe one of those guys turns out to be a breakout. So what I would probably look to do here is I would try to sell A.J. Brown for Brock Bowers. If that gets rejected, then at that point, we are most likely going to go ahead and we're going to try to sell Mike Evans for Trey McBride. That's probably going to get rejected. And then we pivot over to trying to sell like Mike Evans and Jake Ferg for George Kittle. And obviously include Jake Ferguson in all these trades because if we get Bowers, if we get Kittle, if we get McBride, Ferg won't have any value for us. And then going through and looking at what you have with like Ricky Pearsall, Stephon Diggs, Matthew Golden. Are we like nobody's trading a top 3 tight end for any of those players? So maybe we are excited about them and we would feel comfortable getting them into our starting lineup. And that's what gives us the flexibility in a league where you only start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex to make that sell where we sell one of our top end receivers for the elite tight end. But I don't think you're going to be able to sell any of those receivers. And if you can't get a tight end, then honestly, you sit with your team as is. Like as is, your team's very strong. And if it was a double flex format, I honestly wouldn't want to make a move. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is with it being a single flex format, tight end's going to make up pretty high percentage of our starting lineup output. And we don't need the wide receiver depth. But I think that's all I got for you. Really appreciate you. And really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this, my guy. And let me make sure we got you the questions, right? Yeah, we sent you over some free questions. Now, Aaron coming through with a team review. Says, I want to trade with team 777 for Kenneth Walker, but if you have any other suggestions, please let me know. So just play the long game. I'm fine with that. I really like Rasheed, and my receivers are my only concern, but running back too. But at least everyone has one hole in their roster. It's a 12-team league. First thing I want to point out is we are the number one team in the league analyzer. Pretty even league, like 2 through 11, but we have a pretty big gap between the rest of the league, and then also the team at 12 is pretty poor. The 777 team is pretty low as well. Looks like maybe you already made a trade with them. If we already have Kenneth Walker on our roster, and this is going to be a double flex format, or at least this is a start 8 league. So we can start 4 wide receivers weekly. So in a league like this, we are less likely to need to go out of our way and build around the elite tight end the way that we would in a 2 wide receiver single flex format. Like here, you can afford to build around more wide receiver depth. We have the elite quarterback with Jaden Daniels. So I'm looking at what we have with the other quarterbacks on the waiver wire. Like there are great options. You could pick up Caleb. You could pick up Dak. You could pick up Goff. You could pick up Fields. Very similar situation to where I'm at in the Flock League, where I have Josh Allen, and in the Flock League, like these quarterbacks are on the waiver wire as well. Where I would like to go through, I would like to pick them up, but like there's just no way they hit your starting lineup, right? And there are so many of them that if you were to get a Jaden Daniels injury, then at that point, I mean, there are plenty of guys we can go ahead and we can look at. Now, going over and looking at what we have with our running back position. We currently are sitting with Trevion, Kenneth Walker, Trey Benson, Caleb Johnson, Ramondre Stevenson. So we have 2 running backs that we can feel comfortable starting early in the year. We have running backs. We have a running back on the bench with Caleb Johnson that may continue to get better as the season goes on. And we have the premium handcuffs with Benson and Ramondre. So overall, great running back room with all things considered, that we have the best wide receiver room in this league with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Tet McMillan, Ricky Pearsall. And we can start all 4 of those wide receivers weekly. And then we have Addison, Luther Burden, Jalen McMillan, and Christian Watson. Now this probably goes without being said, but if either Jalen McMillan or Christian Watson are not on your injured reserve, if either guy is on your actual bench, then what you are going to be doing in that case is you will be dropping that player and you will be picking up your call between Hollywood Brown and Quentin Johnston on the waiver wire. Realistically, post Rashee Rice suspension, I probably need to go ahead and update my rankings and put Hollywood ahead of the big Q. Because if I was recommending which wide receiver you'd pick up, I would say you want to pick up Hollywood. So let me move Marquise Brown over. So I think Hollywood would more likely than not be your pickup here. And then in terms of what we can do for a trade for this team, like, I don't know. You're sitting with almost the exact roster I'd want. The potential move I would make wouldn't come until halfway through the year, because the issue is this is a league where we kind of need the wide receiver depth, right? It's a start 8 format. So, I mean, you're not able to just go through and immediately like sell Ricky Pearsall for a better tight end. Because if you sell Ricky Pearsall for a better tight end, then at that point, you're just going to be putting yourself in a position in which I guess you have question marks surrounding a flex spot, right? Like you're just going to have a depth issues at another point of your team. And also, by the way, I'm on another screen. I just moved Tet McMillan up to our wide receiver 18. I think with the Coker injury and the Adam Thielen trade, there's no way I can't move him up. Like I got to. So I would wait until we get Addison back. But once you get Addison back, hopefully you'd be closer to like a Luther Burden breakout as well, then there in that case, you'd be in a much better spot where you have the expendable wide receiver, where if you wanted to try to sell Ted McMillan and go get yourself a viable tight end, especially if Ted McMillan crushes early in the year and then you're able to sell Ted McMillan and go get George Kittle, then sure, let's run it. But I don't think you can make that move right now until we get either a Luther Burden breakout or we get Jordan Addison back from the suspension. So realistically, I love your team. You're the number one team in your league for a reason. The only thing that I would potentially look to do is if we do not have 2 IR spots for both Jalen McMillan and Christian Watson, I would drop one of them and I would pick up either the backup quarterback with Caleb Williams, or I would pick up the secondary wide receiver with Hollywood Brown. Or you could go and look at running backs and pick up like Miles Sanders and see what his role is week 1. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out. And let me make sure I send you over some free questions just in case you have anything else that you want me to take a look at for your team, my friend. And let's move this over to our next person. It's going to be Paco FF. It says, first time playing in a format like this. Okay. Looks like I need to make sure that we are signed in here. So it's a 14-team league, I believe. We'll see this in just 1 second. Which obviously 14-team league, our bar is going to be lower just a bit in terms of what we view as like a true contending roster. And at the same time, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to come by the skill positional depth. So it'll be a little harder to build around the elite quarterback, the elite tight end. But first time playing in a format like this, settings go as follows. 14-team non-PPR Superflex 6-point passing touchdown, where we start a quarterback, 2 running backs, wide receiver, tight end, 1 flex, 1 super flex, DST, kicker. Went quarterback and running back heavy as wide receiver didn't seem as valuable in this format. Thank God. You were playing in the craziest, and I mean the craziest league ever for quarterback value. How do you bump up quarterback value? You make it a super flex league, first and foremost. How do you bump up quarterback value again? You make it 6-point passing touchdowns. How do you make up even more quarterback value? You only have 1 additional spot next to the super flex spot, which means you have a total of 8 starting requirements in your lineup that are offensive players. 2 of them are quarterback. So 25% of your starting lineup requirements are quarterback, plus it's a 6-point passing touchdown format, so they're going to make up a high percentage of it. And how do you bump up quarterback value again? You make it non-PPR, because taking away points per reception will negatively impact wide receiver a ton, negatively impact tight end, negatively impact running back slightly, but quarterback's not affected at all. And how do you bump up quarterback value again? You make it a 14-team Superflex league as opposed to a 12-teamer, because in a 14-teamer, if you do simple math, not everybody can have 3 starters. Everybody's going to try to get 3 starting quarterbacks. If everybody gets 2, then there are only 6 starters left over, and one of those is freaking Spencer Rattler. So this league is so quarterback heavy for so many different reasons that I would have taken like the quarterback 15 off the board over Jamar Chase. Big thing with that is also it being a non-PPR format, which I know sounds like we are exaggerating, but it is massive. This is not your normal fantasy football league. So when we go through and we look at the quarterback position, and we have Lamar, Baker, Bryce Young in a 14-team format, you are winning this league. You've wrapped it up. It is GG's for the rest of your league. We have the number 1 quarterback room in the league, the number 5 running back room in the league, which is definitely above average. It's 14 teams. We have Hampton, Chuba, Pollard, Javonte, Jaden Blue. Not only do we have the stronger running backs at the top than the wide receivers, but we're even rostering more running backs than we are wide receivers. Wide receiver, we're pseudo punting. We have Sutton, Ricky Pearsall, Keon Coleman, Christian Kirk. And tight end, we have Hawkinson. I don't have a single note for your team. Your league format's crazy. You optimized exactly for it. You are going, as long as Lamar and Baker stay healthy, if they do anything close to what they gave you last year, your league mates have no shot. You're going to roll them. So the only thing I could possibly say is with Adam Thielen getting traded away and with Jalen Coker going to the IR, I'd potentially think about dropping Kirk and picking up Leggett in a non-PPR league. But that's the only note I could possibly have with this team. You have a phenomenal team. I would not drop a running back here. Even if I have Leggett ranked ahead of Jaden Blue, non-PPR format, you want the running back. But incredible. Absolutely love it. Insane for a 14-teamer with your league settings. And congrats on winning the league. I wish I had something to say, but I don't really. Now, Jess Sherman, longtime member of the flock, has been here probably longer than anybody else in this chat. Not much to say. Let me know how you feel. Totally honest. And moves you might try to make. So it's a 12-team, 2 wide receiver, single flex. So I'm hoping we have the elite quarterback. I'm hoping we have the elite tight end. We are the 6th team in the league analyzer. So not super excited about that. So I'm assuming first things first that Marshawn Lloyd is on the IR, right? If we have Marshawn Lloyd in a dedicated IR slot, cool, we'll hold him there. If not, what the hell are we doing? Let's cut Marshawn Lloyd and let's go and pick up Quinshon Judkins instead. But I'm assuming that Marshawn Lloyd is on the IR, so he's not actually taking up a roster spot for us. Looking at quarterback, we have Kyler. Kyler's never not been a top 12 quarterback from a points per game perspective, so I'm not going to sit here and act like Kyler is horrible or blah, blah, blah. Like, we're completely fine with Kyler. But with that in mind, like, if you wanted to roster a second quarterback, I'm not going to fault you for it. We have Michael Penix, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith out there on the waiver wire. If Kyler misses time, you may be in trouble. So for me, I think I would consider dropping Woody Marks and picking up somebody like Michael Penix, where maybe Kyler's much worse than he's ever been and we need a quarterback to play the matchups with, or maybe Kyler gets injured, but I think you're going to lose a lot of leverage if we don't have that backup quarterback. Something happens to Kyler and there aren't that many options on waivers. So I'm going to drop Woody Marks kind of regardless, because you either got to pick up Quinshon Judkins or the secondary quarterback by dropping Woody Marks. Running back, we are the 3rd best team in the league analyzer with CMC, Hampton, Javonte Chubb, Brian Robinson, and Woody Marks. So we have the 2 hammers at the very top. We have upside pieces down below. I do think that Woody Marks is a little bit more just kind of like the passing down running back for the Houston Texans, where you're probably a little more excited about Woody Marks if you're going to be in a spot in which it's a full PPR format. So again, that's why I'd be willing to move on from him in favor of Quinshon Judkins. I think that if Judkins were to end up coming back to Cleveland, which at this point, we just simply don't know, but he would have a much higher ceiling than what you're going to be able to get with Marks. And based off us having the top end running back production, we don't need to worry about the floor. Then going over and looking at what we have at wide receiver, we have Devontae Adams, Travis Hunter, Rashee Rice, Igbuka, and Jaden Higgins. So my hesitation with this wide receiver room is we are currently sitting with Rashee Rice out for the first 6 weeks, right? So we have no Rice for the first 6 weeks. And Igbuka, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins are all rookies. So I think your wide receiver room is going to be extremely strong in the long term, but I think in the short term, it could struggle. And then going over and looking at what we have at tight end, we are currently sitting with Brock Bowers. So we have the elite tight ends. Nothing to discuss there. Overall, I like the team. I think if you start struggling out the gate, like if you fall to 0-2, I would be quick to sell either a rookie receiver or Rashee Rice to get some production to the lineup right now, because again, I think that the expectation would be you probably start a little bit slow because of the distribution of value being skewed to the second half of the year with 3 of your players, or possibly 4 of your players. We had 3 rookies and a suspended guy. And that's just wide receiver. And I'm assuming Hampton hits the ground running, right? I don't think Hampton's going to start slow. So drop Marshawn Lloyd, pick up Quinshon Judkins if Marshawn Lloyd's not on your IR. Drop Woody Marks and pick up Quinshon Judkins if Marshawn Lloyd is on your IR. And then from there, I don't think you need to pick up a second quarterback, but if you really hate Judkins, I would. And then in terms of trades, I'm not making any trades with this team today. The only trade that I would make is if you start slow, I'd be quick to pounce on some early season production because of the way that our team is set up with how many of these points we have at wide receiver coming in the second half of the season. But I appreciate you hanging out with us. I know you've been with us for years, my guy. And now let's move this over to Super Digital. This is our next team. This is Don't Mind My Team, benches on the weak side. Any tips and suggestions? So we are currently third in the league analyzer, but the team at 1 just has so much wide receiver value, right? This team at 1's drafting wide receivers as if they can start 10 of them. They have Lamb, Brian Thomas, Wilson, Worthy. Travis Hunter's their wide receiver 5. Rice is their wide receiver 6. Rome is their wide receiver 7. Team at 1's going to have a hard time getting that production into their lineup. Now, you can start up to 4 wide receivers in this lineup weekly. Here for Super Digital, we have an elite quarterback with Daniels, which we love to see. We have the elite tight end with Trey McBride, which we love to see. We are rostering the backup tight end with Loveland. Like, I'm fine if you got Loveland for completely free and you're like, Mason, I really am a believer in Loveland this year. I think Loveland's going to smash, and then I could potentially sell either Trey McBride or Loveland for an upgrade elsewhere. Then sure, like I'm okay with it, but obviously, typically we're not looking to have the additional tight end there, especially one that has that much upside. The running back, we have Genty, Brees, Isaiah Pacheco. So a great trio of running backs, right? I could be worried if Brees is my RB1, but RB2, completely fine. I like Genty as my RB1. If Pacheco is my RB2 in a 10-team league, I'd be worried, but RB3, I like it. Then Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, RB4, Tank Bigsby, RB5, Byshell Tootin, RB6. These are guys that we don't need to be anything, and we just can have them for their ultimate upside. So, love our running back room. Receiver, Neighbors wide receiver 1, Tet McMillan wide receiver 2, Jameson Williams wide receiver 3. It's a league in which you can start 4 wide receivers weekly. I'm assuming we're going to be throwing Pacheco into a flex considering how our team is currently set up. But overall, I mean, it's going to be completely fine here at wide receiver as well. And we have the elite tight end, so there's not much I can say with this team. Like, in a vacuum, I'd rather have Jaden Higgins over Tyler Algier, and honestly, I guess because you have the Jordan Addison suspension, there is a non-0% chance that you actually would end up needing you may actually end up needing Jaden Higgins if he does break out. So for me, I think I would cut Tyler Algier and I'd probably pick up Jaden Higgins. Again, I don't love the idea of rostering the backup tight end, but Loveland's too good to cut, of course. And I don't think there's anything else that I would do. Maybe once you get Jordan Addison back, then at that point we can look to make a 2-for-1 deal where we try to sell like Jameson Williams and Isaiah Pacheco and get the best running back we can in return. But that deal is probably not as compelling until you actually end up getting Jordan Addison back on the team, because if you were to make the trade without Addison getting back, then at that point you do open yourself up to a little bit of risk with the lack of wide receiver depth if something happens early. But it's only going to be a 3-game suspension. So I think you kind of sit on your hands. You make that one small waiver wire move. Then week 4, you look to go through and you look to potentially sell the wide receiver, either Jameson or Addison, with a running back, either Pacheco or Brees, to get an upgrade at running back, to have somebody as an elite option in the flex. But I don't think there's anything else to talk about. I think you're in a really good spot. And I guess if you have an open IR slot, obviously I drop Algier, then pick up Ayuk, then move Ayuk to the IR, and then pick up Jaden Higgins. But I'm assuming you would have already picked up Ayuk if you're able to put him on your IR. Or I'm assuming maybe somebody else in your league would have. But again, really do appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way. And really hope I get to see you out in a live stream sometime soon. Now, let's move this over to Grouchy Bracelet. So this is a Dynasty league. We're going to skip by that. We're going to get to that in a Dynasty live stream, my friend. But let's move this over to Jordan. Says, I just had one of my drafts and I put Ayuk and Mixon on the IR. I need help improving my team. Well, first thing is, let me make sure I can set you up with some free vouchers. Just in case there's anything that you want to follow up with this team with us on. The second thing is, not only are we the number one team in the league analyzer, but we are the number one team by a decent margin as well. Like, you look at our roster in comparison to everybody else. I mean, we are just kind of boat racing them. Then this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. So with it being a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, for me personally, I would really like to not build too much wide receiver depth out and instead try to accumulate some of that value with either an elite tight end and or an elite quarterback. Now, looking at our roster currently, we have the 6th best quarterback room. We have the 5th best running back room, the 7th best wide receiver room, and the 2nd best tight end room, according to the league analyzer. So we are not weak at any position. We are strong across the board. Now, at quarterback, we have Caleb and Dak. We're effectively going to be playing the matchups between them. Now, we definitely want to be rostering 2 quarterbacks here, because if we are looking at this, I mean, you're in a situation in which, like the waiver wire, you have Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. So, like, I'm not wanting to ever have to go to the waiver wire to pick up a tight end. I'm sorry, to pick up a quarterback. We definitely only want to have to rely on these 2 players, and we'll play the matchups between the 2 of them. Now, looking at what we have at running back, we have CMC, Chase Brown, J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson. So running back, we have the 2 hammers at the top. We have 2 depth pieces that will probably have small roles at the beginning of the year. But at the end of the day, while you're really excited about them, is you're excited about the fact that if anything were to occur to RJ Harvey, at that point, J.K. Dobbins looks to be a league winner. If anything occurs to Trevion Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson jumps in value massively. So running back, great RB room. Looking at what's available on the waiver wire, there are a couple of running backs that I would say fit that same mold, that they could potentially turn into league winners if the starter were to go down in front of them. These guys would be Trey Benson, Brian Robinson, Tajee Spears, obviously on the IR. And, oh, people are saying it's the wrong team. Dear God. Okay. This is the correct team. Thank you for letting me know, everyone. Oh, that would have been devastating. You can send that to the other team. Here, running back's much worse. I was wondering, I was like, he said he had Mixon and Ayuk. I was like, does the IR not show for Yahoo leagues for us for whatever reason? I was about to have to ask the developers about something. Similar setup at quarterback. We have Goff and Fields. We need to roster both of them. There's nothing on the waiver wire we already saw. Running back, much worse off than the other team. We have the anchor with Barkley, so we can be super excited there. But the depth beyond that, it's nothing. Like, if we're looking at Tracy, he's startable early. But if Scadaboot turns out to be something, could be in trouble. If we're looking at Quinshon Judkins, Joe Mixon, maybe they come back in later in the season, but they could be absolute zeros. So running back depth is very concerning. Going over to wide receiver, you have A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley. It's a league where you can only start 3 wide receivers. So there is actually a move to make with this team, the way that it's structured. You have the most value in your league by far. Like, you're in a really good spot, but you need to sell one of these wide receivers for a running back upgrade. You need to go out there and try to sell Marvin Harrison and Joe Mixon for Kyron Williams. Try to sell Marvin Harrison and Joe Mixon for Amari and Hampton. If they don't want Marvin Harrison, send the same offer with Terry McLaurin. You need to try to go through and sell. I mean, if that doesn't work, you need to go through and you need to try to sell Terry McLaurin straight up for Kenneth Walker. Terry McLaurin straight up for Breece Hall. If that doesn't work, you need to go through and try to sell Calvin Ridley for Tony Pollard. Like, it's very clear, cut and dry what you need to be doing with this team. I would love to pick up J.K. Dobbins. I'm sorry, not J.K. Dobbins. I would love to pick up Trey Benson for free on waivers. But the issue with that is going to be, like, realistically, we can't drop Jaden Higgins. We can't drop a quarterback. The waiver wire is god awful. So the only trade that you could possibly make would be to go out of our way and to try to sell one of these wide receivers and try to go get a running back. Whether that's Harrison for one straight up, Terry for one straight up, whether that's Harrison and Mixon together for one. But we have to move some of this wide receiver production over to running back because it's a league where you can only start 3 wide receivers at the very most. But overall, I mean, you have the best team in the league by far. You have Barkley, you have Bowers, you have A.J. Brown, all on the same roster, which is just ridiculous. And let me make sure you got those free questions. You did. So appreciate you, my friend. And sorry that we looked at your league mates team for a bit. But let's move this over to Aware Lift with the massive dono. So what do I do to fix the team? I traded Smitty and Hall for Kamara and JMO, but now it's time to bounce back. Full PBR format. I like that given how exciting we should see Kamara as an option with. So let me set you up with a bunch of free vouchers, my guy. That way you can ask us questions throughout the entire year on this stream. So you should have a total of 6 free vouchers to send us in trade and start sit questions. We are currently dead average in this league with the league analyzer. What I really like to see with this team is it's a league in which you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. And in that case, the wide receiver depth's not going to matter much. And instead, we would prefer to build around the elite quarterback if we can. And we do have Josh Allen currently on the squad. So really like what we have with our quarterback of Josh Allen. When we're sitting at running back, we have Kamara, Swift, Jaden Blue, Najee Harris. So running back, we are capable at the very top. The issue that I would have with the team as it stands now, it's just the depth is extremely questionable below. Like Jaden Blue could be an absolute 0. Najee Harris could be an absolute 0 as well. If we go over and we look at options on the waiver wire, I think both Jerome Ford and Woody Marks are in play to have some viable role in their respective offenses. Now, the issue with this is, one, I'm assuming that Tank Dell is on our IR. If you were actually rostering Tank Dell, for the love of God, drop Tank Dell and pick up a running back like Jerome Ford immediately. But I'm assuming you're not actually rostering Tank Dell. I'm assuming he's in our IR. And if we can't just drop Tank Dell, then at that point, the guy that we're going to have to look to drop is probably Dalton Kincaid. And you can just see this straight up with my rankings. I do have Jerome Ford and Woody Marks as much better options than Kincaid. I'm sorry, I have Kincaid as a much better option than the running backs in the overall rankings. And the fact of the matter is you're not going to be able to sell Kincaid for anything. So it's like, do we want to drop Kincaid as our tight end 3 because we don't need a third tight end and we want to pick up an additional running back depth piece that will help the team? And we just simply give up and we lose value there. I would prefer not to do that. What I would prefer to do, if possible, is try to find a way to sell one of these tight ends for almost an upgrade anywhere. That way we can get our roster down to only 2 tight ends and open up a roster spot at the same time where we'd feel comfortable bringing in Woody Marks, feel comfortable bringing in Jerome Ford. And the issue with it is I don't think anybody's going to be trading for Kincaid. So I think the tight end that you would have to trade away is either Loveland or Tucker Kraft. And I really like both of those tight end options. But the fact of the matter is we just can't get away with rostering 3. So like this team here has Tyler Ward and Tyler Warren only. Clearly they're excited about rookie tight end upside. Is there a world in which we can sell them Loveland for JCM? Because if you can sell Loveland for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from them, then all of a sudden we actually have possibly a third viable depth piece at running back. They have Loveland and Tyler Warren, so they're for sure going to get at least a breakout tight end from one of those. And then we have Tucker Kraft and Kincaid, so we're still okay at tight ends. So I would love to try to pivot from like Loveland to Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I would also try to pivot from Dalton Kincaid to Tank Bigsby. Another move you could try to make would be Loveland and Alvin Kamara for Bucky. They're probably going to reject it. We could try Loveland and DeAndre Swift for Trevion Henderson. They probably reject. And then we'd offer that same deal with Tucker Kraft. And then our follow-up after they reject those offers would be like, hey, well, can I just give you Loveland straight up for JCM? This team is Kelsey and Goddard. They're probably not looking to trade for another tight ends. This team is Andrews and Henry. They're probably not. This team is Hawk. I doubt the TJ Hawkinson team's that interested, but I mean, if there's a world in which you could take like Loveland and Jameson Williams and go get Marvin Harrison, I think that could be interesting, just given the fact that you would open up a roster spot to pick up a running back at that point while not really sacrificing too much at tight end. And we'd be able to go pick up like Jerome Ford for free and we get the wide receiver upgrade. So like packaging Loveland and Loveland and Jameson Williams for Marvin Harrison. I would look to do that. This team has Njoku and Pitts. They're probably not looking to make a trade. This team has Evan Ingram and that's it. Maybe this team would be in the market. If we could try to send them like Loveland and Alvin Kamara for Chase Brown. If we could try to send them Tucker Kraft and DeAndre Swift for, or like Tucker Kraft and Kamara for Kyron. Or we could try to sell them Loveland for Travis Etienne straight up. Those are 3 other moves that I think we could look to make. This team is Bowers. This team is Kittle. This team is Brenton Strange and Mason Taylor. So this could be a great trade candidate for us as well. Can we try to send them Loveland for Caleb Johnson? Even if we got to throw in like a depth running back piece like Jaden Blue or Najee Harris. I think that would be interesting for us. And because to be honest with you, if we can't get away with one of these running back trades, given the lack of running back depth that we have, I think the other move that we would look, tight end trades, I think given the lack of running back depth that we would have, I think I would cut Najee Harris in favor of Jerome Ford, where it does look like Ford has it as a possibility to just be a straight up starting running back for the Browns week 1. Is there anything else that we could possibly try to say with this? I mean, wide receiver, it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. We're starting Jefferson, JSN, and then we're going to consider like Jameson, Igbuka, Jaden Higgins in the flex. If we end up getting like 2 of these 3 wide receivers smashing, where it's like, oh, Jameson looks like an every week starter and Igbuka looks like an every week starter, or if it's Igbuka and Higgins, or if it's Jameson and Jaden Higgins, then I think you could probably afford to sell one of the wide receivers and not even a 2-for-1 deal, maybe just sell them straight up for a running back swap. But I would probably want to make sure that we get a breakout from one of the rookie wide receivers before we were to make that move and compromise our roster with almost no running back depth. But yeah, those are a bunch of different potential moves that we can make. At the very least, obviously, if Tank Dell's not on the IR, you cut Tank Dell, you pick up Jerome Ford. I would also consider, if you can't do that, I would consider cutting Najee Harris for Jerome Ford. I think the biggest issue with your team is just going to be when it comes to the running back depth. But I really appreciate you, my friend. Like I said, I sent you over those 6 free vouchers for free questions. So if there's anything that you want me to follow up with on this, I'd be super happy to help you out with it all year, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's get back to some of the quick hitting questions real quick. These are going to be the start, sit, trade, and super messages. So Kyle sent in a super message, says, when I go to my teams, it says needs credentials for 2 of that. How do I fix this? So I'm going to assume that if it says it needs credentials, it's going to be an ESPN league, because ESPN private leagues, you need like 2, I don't even know what you call them, 2 little keys essentially. So the devs on flockfantasy.com are geniuses, and they built out a workaround for this for you. So here's what you got to do. I'm sorry for it to be a pain in the butt. ESPN's the only one to make it a pain in the butt. So here, like when you're linking your league, just hit league, manage, and then you can hit sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, whatever you need. If it's a sleeper league, it's super easy. You just copy and paste your league ID and you put it here. If it's a Yahoo league, it's super easy. We were having problems earlier in the offseason because Yahoo is limiting how many times we are allowed to hit their API. But Yahoo actually got back to me early in the week, and now they allow us to hit their API an infinite amount of times. Let me go get the dog real quick. Okay, sorry, we are back. If it's ESPN, this is what's like here, Yahoo, you just hit submit. It takes you to Yahoo. You log in and we automatically link all your leagues. This is what's a pain in the butt is ESPN. The other 2 you can do on your phone easily. This one I would recommend doing a desktop. I would also recommend Google Chrome. Safari sometimes a little funky. You go ahead and you log into ESPN on one window, log into flockfantasy.com in the other window. You hit this get extension. It's going to add an extension to your computer. You open up the extension, you hit the sync button, and it will pull your ESPN credentials into flockfantasy.com for that league, and it will link that league, and then you can delete the extension, and you never have to do anything with it again. And every time you go to the My Teams page, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your computer, it doesn't matter, your ESPN league will load. So the ESPN one's the one that's a pain in the butt. It's just like a 2 or 3 step process. It only takes about 1 minute, but it's like a 2-3 steps where the other one's just 1 step. And again, you only have to do it once and then you're good to go forever and you never have to worry about linking it again. It will automatically link for you, like update for you. But hopefully that helps you, my friend. But let's move over to our next question. This one from Colorado Frost says, do I go with an elite tight end with the wide receiver depth that we have? So this is a very fair price point, and it's a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league where we have Neighbors, Tet, Hunter, and Puka. So 100% yes, we want Josh Allen here. 100% you can go out there and you can overpay for the elite quarterback. Now, Ark with a trade says, I'd have to drop someone because Ayuk is on the IR. It's a 16-team league. We should have an easy drop. Drop Theo Johnson. Doesn't matter. Go get Juwan Jennings. 16-team league, Juwan Jennings is actually maybe startable for you. Now, James with the start set question. Here, I think, let me pull up the underdog pick him for RJ Harvey week 1. Is like Harvey complete dust week 1? I like the fact that the Broncos are just such heavy favorites over the Tennessee Titans. So you'd assume they can run the ball a bunch. Yeah, RJ Harvey's higher, lower 35.5 rushing yards. So if that's the case, I don't know if I can tell anybody to like play RJ Harvey week 1. What's Travis Hunter at? It's full PPR format. We've gotten this question a lot. They don't have picks out for Hunter. Can you all spam the chat? Who would you start week 1? Travis Hunter against the Panthers, or would you start RJ Harvey against the Titans? Please let me know what you're going to be going with. We got Hunter, Hunter, Harvey, Hunter, 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 Hunter. It looks like most people are saying Hunter. Again, I think you're taking a risk with either one, but they're definitely the plays over the other guys. Full PBR format. F it. Let's run Hunter. Okay, and let's move this over and get back to some of the teams that we're going to be looking at. And again, we're going to skip over the Dynasty teams just because those we are saving for the Dynasty live stream. But here, I think H. Simpson, that's a Dynasty League. Sickas is going to be this next one. Says, haven't done any trades yet, but I've been told the team's really good. Also, could I get a link for the live stream clip? Much love. Much love, my friend. Really do appreciate you. So how this is going to work, and you'll see this because it happens for you automatically, but just in case anybody else doesn't know, as soon as I answer this for Sickas, it's going to automatically send a link through flogfantasy.com to this live stream with the exact timestamp that I answered the question. You just click it and he's going to take it to the time that I'm answering. And really do appreciate you. Let me hook you up with a bunch of free questions that you can ask through the year for us. And I will say as well with this, my friend, that this is an ESPN league. So you should be able to link your ESPN league and see a bunch of cool features with the My Teams page. I actually just showed how to do that about 15 minutes ago in the live stream, or maybe even like 5 to 10 minutes ago. So if you just rewind a bit, it'll be a simple little explanation for you on how to link your league. But the setup here is going to be a 2 wide receiver, single flex format. So I really want to be building around the top end onesies rather than wide receiver depth. Looking at what we have here, we can actually see the starting lineup matchup. So this is exciting. But quarterback, we have Josh Allen. And then going over to the bench, we are not rostering another quarterback. Absolutely love to see it. Obviously, we do not need another quarterback when we are sitting with Allen in our lineup. And going over and looking at what we have with the running back room, we have James Conner, Trevion Henderson. So, I mean, to have either one of these running backs as my RB1, I wouldn't be that excited. To have either one of them as my RB2, I would be absolutely pumped. Going over and looking at the depth at running back, I would prioritize that over the depth at wide receiver for your league settings specifically. And here down on the bench, we have Trey Benson, we have Austin Eckler, we have Jerome Ford. So we have 3 running backs that have paths to actual roles in their offenses. In the case of Trey Benson, you're probably pretty much just looking at a premium handcuff back where if anything were to occur to James Conner, Trey Benson probably turns into a must-start running back every week. But overall, running back, incredibly strong. I'm sorry, running back depth, incredibly strong. Running back at the top end, pretty weak. Wide receiver, however, we have Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we effectively have 2 wide receivers that should have gone in round 1 of your fantasy draft. No idea how you got these guys together. I will say I saw Amon-Ra St. Brown in the Flock League fall to the 2nd round as well, which I actually really did like that value, and I'm assuming that's kind of where you got him too. Now going over and looking at what we have with the bench receivers, we have Tet McMillan, Rashee Rice as wide receivers 4 and 5 after Davante Adams. So for me, I think with how strong your roster is, there is no, and we have Jordan Addison here as well. So I understand, yeah, we are dealing with the Addison suspension early. Yeah, I understand we're dealing with the Rashee Rice suspension early. So I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to wait just a bit to make this kind of move. But what I eventually would like to do here is I would really want to go ahead and I would want to try our best to play for an elite RB1. Couple different ways that we could go about this. We could try our hand at trading Tet McMillan and James Conner together. We could try our hand at trading Tet McMillan and Trevion Henderson together. The range of running backs that would be looking at, let me just go ahead and pull up the rankings on another screen that we can get going for you. I know I keep teasing these. This is the page that we creators use now on the site to update our rankings. And it will soon be available for y'all as well. But if we're looking at the running backs, like if we're going to go Tet McMillan and Trevion Henderson, if you can get anybody in the B tier, I would like it. If you could go Tet McMillan and Trevion Henderson for Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, or obviously anybody in the A tier would be a no-brainer. CMC, Ashton Jeanty, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane. That would be plan A. Plan B is we go, and honestly, here's my thing. I view maybe your league mates would rather have James Conner over Trevion Henderson. I'd rather have Henderson. Maybe your league mates would rather have Devontae Adams over Tet McMillan. And those wide receivers are almost identical for me. I'd rather have Tet McMillan at this point. So I would really just approach those league mates that have CMC, Jeanty, Derrick Henry, Achane, Jacobs, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, and go like, hey, who do you like more between Devontae Adams and Tet McMillan? Hey, who do you like more between Trevion Henderson and RJ Harvey? Take the answers of the two players that they like the most. And then at that point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to send that package of those two players over, and we're going to try to get the upgrade that way. And then if both of those get rejected, where we offer like the 6 owners, the combination of Adams and Conner, Henderson and McMillan, then at that point, I think our backup plan would be to just kind of pivot over and look at trading one of the receivers that's in the same tier as a running back for an RB. Like maybe going through and taking Jefferson and seeing if there's a world where we can pivot to Barkley, Gibbs, Bijan. See if there's a world in which we can pivot from Amon-Ra St. Brown to CMC, Jeanty, Derrick Henry, and just move that wide receiver over to a running back in the same tier. And then another possibility of what we could look at is if we're striking out on the running backs and we don't get the elite RB in, your team is strong enough where if we could just sell Devontae Adams and Evan Ingram to go get Brock, we're not going to get Bowers, to go get McBride, to go get George Kittle. If you could sell Tet McMillan and Evan Ingram to go get George Kittle, I think that we would look to do that. Okay. Okay. I think that's all I have for you. Again, I think you're too strong where we can't afford to not make one of those moves, if that makes sense. I think you have to try to get either the elite running back or the elite tight end in here. But I really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. And again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock, my friend. And like I said, I set you up with a bunch of those free vouchers as well. You should have like 6 free vouchers in your account to ask me questions at any time you want. Now let's move this over to Dave, also with another massive dono. My guy, really do appreciate you and super excited to look at this. As Mason, trying to redeem myself from last year's catastrophic season. Not super happy with my wide receiver, and what are some moves I can make? I appreciate everything, man. No, I appreciate you. Let me hook you up with a ton of vouchers. That way you can go through and you can send as many questions about this team as you possibly want. Here are a bunch of trades. Here are a bunch of start sits, my friend. And yeah, don't hesitate to send anything my way as a follow-up here. This is a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. If it's a 2 wide receiver single flex league, we are highly incentivized to not concern ourselves with the depth at wide receiver because it's going to be super easy to always go to the waiver wire and get a play in. So if we look at that, we have Rashad Bateman, Luther Burden, Marvin Mims, Hollywood Brown, Trey Harris, Quinn. You could always go to the waiver wire and find a receiver, and it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, right? So ultimately, I think if we are in a spot where we're ever starting Christian Kirk, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. If it's a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, and we have Christian Kirk in our starting lineup, we got bigger fish to fry. We got bigger problems. So for me, if I was shooting for the highest ceiling possible, I understand that you're probably not going to be able to get him on your IR. If you had an IR spot you're able to put him in, then I'd imagine he would already be rostered. But I would pick up Joe Mixon here. Like, I think Joe Mixon could possibly be a complete 0 for you. But at the same time, there's a world in which Mixon does come back, and he is a viable play for us in the second half of the season. Which, again, I just don't see the path for Christian Kirk to be like any type of exciting option in a 10-team league like this. So I would drop Kirk. I would pick up Joe Mixon. In terms of other potential pivots, I guess you could talk me into, if you really didn't want Mixon, going with Jared Goff. Because if we look at the waiver wire option with Goff here, Goff is going to be in a different tier in comparison to what we have with the other quarterbacks, such as Lawrence, Michael Penix, Tua, Cam Ward, Bryce Young on waivers. And Goff is good enough that if Bo Nix is struggling and Goff is steaming, like, you could talk me in to putting Jared Goff into our starting lineup over Bo Nix at one point. So if you wanted to roster both Bo Nix and Jared Goff, I'm not going to fault you for it. Going over and looking at running back, we have Bucky Hampton. So we have 2 running back 1s effectively. We have Aaron Jones, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Zach Charbonnet, Byshell Tootin. Okay. I'm trying to think. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, Harrison, Rome, Shakir, Jaden Higgins. So our starting lineup week 1's Bo Nix at quarterback. Running back, we have Bucky Hampton. Wide receiver, we have Lamb, Harrison. In the flex spot, we're choosing between Aaron Jones, Rome Odunze. We have the depth of like JCM, Shakir, Jaden Higgins, Charbonnet. Nobody's trading for any of these players. We have the elite tight end with Kittle. There are no trades to make with this team. The structure of this roster is completely fine. The only thing that comes down to it is, do we want to roster Christian Kirk, Jared Goff, or Joe Mixon? In my opinion, I would opt to go with the running back or the quarterback here, given your league settings and given your setup. And then in terms of like where potential trades could come from, is like if multiple depth pieces hit for us. We're like, right now we can say like JCM obviously has a lot of upside. But at the same time, JCM's not guaranteed to be anything, right? We can say that Jaden Higgins has a lot of upside, but at the same time, he's not guaranteed to be anything. Rome Odunze has a lot of upside, but he's not guaranteed to be anything. But if you end up getting like a Rome breakout, a JCM breakout, and a Jaden Higgins breakout, and then all of a sudden you're going like, hey, I have 2 crushers down there on my bench, then at that point, it could be very compelling to try to trade like Marvin Harrison and Bo Nix to go get an elite quarterback, to go get one of the top 4 names. But the issue with making that move right now is if you make that trade right now and then Rome Odunze doesn't break out, then all of a sudden we're going to really be struggling in comparison to the rest of our league at wide receiver 2 in the flex. So you can't make that trade today. That would have to be a trade that's on the future horizon for you. The only thing that I think you do with this team today, I think you had a good draft, is you drop Kirk and you pick up Goff or you pick up Mixon, I think it's going to move you up the league analyzer as well. But like I said, I'm sorry that I don't have a trade for you today. It's just like there's no like expendable piece on the roster for the time being. So like I said, I set you up with like 6 free vouchers to just keep on hammering us with questions through the season. So don't hesitate to send over anything to me as the year goes on. I'd be super happy to check out anything for you, my friend. But let's move this over to our next team. This is going to be from Beto, who's always out here in the stream with us. Always happy to see you, my guy. Says, hey, Mason, I didn't realize this was a tight end premium league. Am I screwed? Been looking around for tight end, and I think I need to overpay to get a solid guy. What are your thoughts on overpaying? My buddy doesn't mind Loveland for Golden. Thoughts on my team and any trades we could look to do. So this is a tight end premium format, which is going to be interesting to point out. And at the same time, it is a deeper league as well. This is a start 9 format. So if the league analyzer is pulling this in correctly, we can ultimately play 5 wide receivers in our starting lineup weekly. And also because it's a tight end premium league, you're in a situation in which you can get a flex into our starting lineup. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm actually going to pull this up. So it looks like for whatever reason, maybe we changed our name. I don't know why, but I can't see exactly what our team name is. Should be able to see it on this end. So we are humble. Okay, so we already checked out your team here, my friend. We are humble. Maybe this is a different team, but we're going to look at it nonetheless. So saying you didn't realize it was a tight end premium league. So I guess since you submitted this, we already have Trey McBride on the squad. So we already made a play to get McBride, which obviously in a league in which you have 1.5 points per reception for the tight end position, and Trey McBride can go out there and have 100 receptions. Like, McBride does have access to a true elite level ceiling here for you in this league. So love to see that. I think that honestly, if the league analyzer was taking into account that there was a tight end premium aspect to this, I think you'd be even higher. But again, the depth is going to be super important in this league. So I actually agree with us deciding to focus in on the skill positions rather than quarterback. So quarterback, we have Dak Prescott and Jordan Love at the moment. For me, I rank McCarthy slightly ahead of Jordan Love. I have McCarthy QB 16 versus Love QB 17. I just think if we look at the weapons in Minnesota, where you're seeing McCarthy with Jefferson, we have McCarthy with Hawkinson, we have McCarthy with Addison, now Adam Thielen, a much improved offensive line. Like, realistically, like, you're in a really good spot for us to see a lot of passing volume in Minnesota. So, and especially with the Micah Parsons trade, I mean, maybe the Green Bay Packers are winning a lot of games and they can't just run the ball in the second half. Like, that is going to be in the range of outcomes for him here. So I'd potentially make that one little swap, going over and looking at what we have with Chase Brown, Amari and Hampton, Breece Hall. Again, depth is going to be super important in our league. So with the depth mattering this much, I want to roster as many of these running backs as possible that could potentially turn into starters. So we have 3 guys that are viable starters for us. While we don't have a Bijan Robinson level player, while we don't have a Saquon Barkley level player, it's going to be completely fine. It's not like this is a 2 wide receiver single flex league. We go over to wide receiver. We have Nico, Pickens, Igbuka, Matthew Golden. Looking at potential waiver wire moves, this is a full PPR format, so I think that I would possibly look at dropping Chris Rodriguez for Woody Marks. Going over to wide receiver. Again, all these wide receiver depth pieces are going to be extremely viable for us. Like, we can get in a start 9 league, say we have Dak Prescott at quarterback, we have McBride at tight end, so we need 7 running backs and receivers. We have Chase Brown, Hampton, Brees in our lineup with Nico, Pickens, Egbuka, and we're choosing between the last flex of Matthew Golden, Travis Etienne, Cam Scadaboo. So these last roster spots are very relevant for us. Here's what I may do. Early in the season, I may prefer rostering Hollywood Brown over Cedric Tillman while Rashee Rice is suspended. And then when we get Rice back, then at that point we can go ahead and we can drop Hollywood in favor of Tillman if you still prefer rostering him instead. And then when we're looking at the elite tight end with Trey McBride, rostering a backup tight end is going to be viable because they could hit our flex since it's a tight end premium format and we have so many flex spots. So what I wouldn't mind if I were you is if you really wanted to go ahead and roster a backup tight end, I think I would consider going with Likely rather than Taylor. So overall, I really like the team. And again, if this was a situation in which you were in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, I think you would do anything that you could to try to up tier and go get an elite quarterback. I'd be trying to sell like Amari and Hampton and Dak Prescott for Josh Allen for Lamar Jackson. So I think the only thing that we are looking to do is make the small waiver wire pivots. I love your team in a tight end premium league. Again, I think if the analyzer was taking into account this tight end premium format and McBride should go at the 1-2 turn instead, you possibly would be at the very top, maybe only behind this other team that has Bowers. But really appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way. I did send you over some of the free vouchers as well. So if there's anything else that you want to follow up with me here, I'd be super happy to take a look at it for you. But let's move this team review over to Sean. Says, what's up, Mason? Please rate the team and let me know where we should be looking to upgrade. Also, should I try to trade Rashee Rice? If so, what packages would be great? So my instant gut reaction before we even look at your team is it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. So the depth isn't going to be that hard to come by. So I'd imagine you're going to be able to get away with not having Rashee Rice through the first 6 weeks. But we are 3rd in the league analyzer. However, if you look at the value distribution, it's really just like the top 3 teams are all tied here. And then you have the significant drop off to everybody else. And we are in that top little tier. And looking at what we have with the waiver wire right now, there are incredibly strong names. So honestly, I think Rashee Rice is very easy to hold on to in a league like this. Because if we're going to be looking at like Josh Downs on your waiver wire, hell, we could always go out there and we could find a starter if we need. Like the depth's not going to be that hard. So with this being a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format as well, I absolutely love us having Lamar Jackson, the elite level quarterback. Going over to running back, we have Bijan, Brees, Etienne, Judkins, Tank Bigsby. So, I mean, like if Brees was my running back 1, I'd be really concerned. But if Brees is our running back 2 here behind the elite name, I think we're in a great spot. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby being quality depth pieces gives us a lot of flexibility as well. Going over to wide receiver, we have A.J. Brown, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, Stephon Diggs, Keon Coleman. So we're starting A.J. Brown, George Pickens at wide receiver early in the year. We have Bijan, Brees at running back early in the year. And then we're deciding between Stephon Diggs and Travis Etienne in the flex, which is actually funny because I am also deciding between Stephon Diggs and Travis Etienne in the flex week 1. Can y'all please let me know in the chat real quick? 1 for Puka Madre and 2 for me because we're both going to have the same issue. Please spam the chat. Who would you start between Travis Etienne and Stephon Diggs? The second thing that I would possibly do here is looking at the team. I think I would probably drop Keon Coleman or Tank Bigsby in favor of Josh Downs. I think Josh Downs is going to be too exciting to have out there on the waiver wire, especially if we have no Judkins and no Rashee Rice early in the year. Downs could be a viable flex play for us. And it looks like everybody is saying Stephon Diggs over ETN. So nobody's on the ETN side of that. So I'll make sure I listen to y'all with my starting lineup. But I would drop Keon for Downs, or I would drop your call of Judkins or Bigsby for Downs. Probably dropping Judkins because you have no Rashee Rice early in the year. I think maybe it's going to be a little bit tougher to have the combination of like Judkins and Rice both taking zeros on your bench. So drop Judkins, pick up Downs, and then I don't do anything. Not until we at least get Rashee Rice back. Once you get Rashee Rice back, then at that point you'll have so much flexibility where you could very easily go and sell like George Pickens and Tyler Warren to try to get to an elite level tight end. But I think you will need to at least have that wide receiver depth for the time being while we are waiting on Rashee Rice to come back. So I love the team. I think we're a top team in this league for a reason. I think actually dropping Judkins and picking up Josh Downs will move you to the number 1 spot in the league analyzer, if I was guessing. And then from there, we wait until we get Rice back, and then we sell a depth receiver with Tyler Warren for an elite tight end. Or maybe we end up having to make a trade for a running back, depending on what plays out with Brees. But we'll know that once we get closer to the week 4, week 5. But I know I said I was going to stream for 5 hours. I'm running out of steam, ladies and gentlemen. I am running out of steam. What do we do here? Do we power through? Let's do the quick questions real quick. Those quick questions are easy to hammer. And also, we may be in a spot in which those quick questions, somebody's waiting for us to answer something for a draft they have today or a trade question that is currently sitting in their inbox. Okay. So let's pull this up. And let's hide the team reviews and we'll just look at these quick ones. So Jay Colley with the start sit, wide receiver. Xavier Worthy is an auto start with no Rice. And we're also going to be going with Tet over Devonta Smith now that you have the Coker and Adam Thielen injuries in a good matchup against the Jags. Finding Debo with the trade question. This is James Cook, Jalen Waddle versus CMC. This is CMC, not even remotely close. I would 100% make that deal. Now, Guy Vertho says it's PPR with about a 3rd point per rushing attempt. So if it's a 3rd point per carry, you absolutely need to start a running back in the flex. Like J.K. Dobbins is going to stomp on Ricky Pearsall in this format. You go Dobbins in the flex, and then we probably go Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver in a good matchup with Flacco, unless you were to end up getting no Jawan Jennings, and you can pivot over to Sticky Ricky. Now, Brett needs starting lineup here. Our best options on the bench will be like Dylan Sampson. There's no way I'm playing Dylan Sampson over any of these guys. Caleb versus Lawrence. I think you probably do play Lawrence week 1 given the matchups, but it's close. Relic, Ollie Gordon versus Tracy. You play Tracy regardless of if A-Chan's playing or not. K-Matt, this is Jefferson versus Josh Jacobs and Terry McLaurin. You know I love me some Josh Jacobs. I understand that it looks like with your league settings, depth's going to be a little bit important, but still I think if you are selling Justin Jefferson, you need more value than this. So let me answer this. We'll refresh and see if there were any more quick questions to come in. Okay. We got Sun God says, Hook'em Lawrence, WTF. Thoughts on the team Mason. Thought the draft went well. Looking at the starting lineup, like Xavier Worthy is the auto start with no Rice. And honestly, if Downs smashes, you could potentially be in a spot where Adams and Tyler Warren could be a 2-for-1 deal for an elite tight end. And Tony making a trade for an elite tight end. It's a dynasty format. Giddens, Jalen Wright, give me Giddens. Hawkinson versus Kittle, give me Hawk in a vacuum in dynasty. The only way I make this move is if it's like, hey, I really need to push in and I really need to win this year. Because I'd rather have Kittle this season, but I can almost guarantee you that Hawkinson's going to be worth more in Dynasty next offseason. I don't know if it'll be close. But I think that's all I got for y'all. Gosh. I will be live tonight, of course, doing the underdog drafts. Very excited for that. Maybe we'll do more than 3 underdog drafts tonight. But a little tired and going to walk the dog. And I actually have a little bit of time to kill. What can I do for maybe prep it tomorrow's video? I don't know. Maybe I cut my run short earlier this morning. Maybe I go another run. No way I do that. I'll figure it out. Maybe I just sit there, read a book, take a nap. But appreciate, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with us. I will see you in the drafts tonight. And of course, if you haven't already, I'm going to be live streaming every single day until Christmas. So if you hit the bell next to the subscribe button, YouTube will tell you when we are live streaming. And obviously subscribe if you haven't already. But really appreciate y'all and really hope we get to see you out with that live stream later tonight.